Second by Cass, second by Todd. Any discussion about today's agenda? Hearing none, those in favor of agenda approval indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. The agenda is approved. Moving on to communication with public comment. The board has a significant interest in maintaining the decorum of its meetings and is expected the members of the public and the board will address each other with civility. The orderly process of the board meeting will not be interfered with or disrupted by public comment. Only individuals recognized by the board president will be allowed to speak. Comments by others are out of order. If disruptive, the individual causing disruption may be asked to leave the board meeting. Abusive, disruptive, or defamatory comments will not be permitted. The state board's agenda is full and I'll place a maximum of 30 minutes for public comment. I'll give each speaker 5 minutes or 3 minutes if there are a large number of speakers. At the end of your allotted time, I'll ask you to conclude and the board will move on to the next speaker. The department will not respond to public comment aside from requesting clarification. The department may place a topic raised in public comment on a future agenda. Topic from the comment that is not related to an item on today's agenda will not be addressed at today's meeting. Do we have any public comment today?
If you wish to address the board, please use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in, please press *9 to raise your hand. There do not appear to be any public comments today.
All right, we'll move on to the director's report.
Thank you. Thank you, President Robbins, Vice President Axiotis, and members of the board for your public service on this impactful board. Before we get started, the board's hearts are with the Iowa Lakes Community College students, families, coaches, and community members after a devastating bus crash during the school's baseball team yesterday. We are also grateful to all of the first responders and medical care teams. Related to the legislative session, we do have the first funnel of the 2026 Iowa legislative session quickly approaching on February 20th, except for bills that are related to tax and spending. Bills that are not passed by a committee in either chamber do not make it through the funnel. And happy to engage in any questions about the department's pre-filed legislation should you be so interested. Last month, we also were excited to share that Iowa's Unified Allocation Plan received first in the nation approval of critical steps to help refocus federal resources on their true intended purpose, the success of all learners. And just last week, we had the opportunity to present to the House Federal and Other Funds Appropriations Subcommittee on Iowa's Unified Allocation Plan and the remarkable results that positioned Iowa to help lead the nation. And if you are interested, our presentation slide deck is also posted on our Iowa Unified Allocation Plan webpage. Today, you'll also get to meet the 2026 Iowa Teacher of the Year, Stephanie Fritz. She's a 23-year veteran elementary teacher and instructional coach, and you'll get to learn more about how Stephanie accelerates student achievement through evidence-based instruction and reinforces learning through strong partnerships with families. Stephanie leads a strong instructional support system to meet the unique needs of each learner, and I think you'll see how she does so with incredible energy and enthusiasm and dedication. But please also remember that the deadline to submit nominations for our Iowa Teacher of the Year 2027, believe it or not, is February 27th. Nominated teachers will be invited to submit an application, and each nomination will be reviewed by the selection committee in that respective region. 9 finalists representing teachers from all 9 education regions across the state will be named as Regional Teachers of the Year, and then through an interview process with education leaders across the state, one of the Regional Teachers of the Year is selected as the 2027 Iowa Teacher of the Year. We are also seeking applications for student leaders to serve as the student member on the State Board of Education. That application period closes February 27th. It's also an agenda item later on in our schedule today. That student representative is appointed by the governor and serves as a non-voting member of the state board. And to be considered, an applicant must be a full-time, regularly enrolled student in grades 10 or 11 and attend an Iowa public school. And all of our application materials and additional information can be found on our State Board of Education webpage on the department's website. And then just yesterday, the department and Iowa Governor's STEM Advisory Council announced 6 outstanding teachers as the 2026 Iowa STEM Teacher Award recipients. This award is now in its 12th year. It's sponsored by Google, and it honors 6 teachers across the state for their excellence in and dedication to STEM education in Iowa. They include Northwest's Alan Danstra, who's a 6th grade math and science teacher in Sioux Center Christian School. North Central's Anna Brooks, who is an agriculture teacher at Ames Community School District. Northeast's Dylan Schaefer, who is a science and intro to STEM teacher at Monticello Community School District. Southwest's Justin Heckman, who is a physics and robotics coach at Abraham Lincoln High School in Council Bluffs. South Central's Jared Mandinger, a medical and bioscience research instructor and STEM camp director and STEM club advisor at Waukee Community School District. And finally, Southeast's Pamela Joslin, a STEM educator at Muscatine Community School District. Each of those 2026 STEM award recipients receive $1,500 to use in support of their classroom, and then $1,500 for personal use. They will also be recognized next week at the STEM Day at the Capitol festivities on Wednesday, February 18th. If anybody is interested in joining, you're welcome. At the request of the board, we'll also provide an update from Red Barn Schoolhouse Public Charter School regarding its efforts to secure school facilities. Their update reads, the conditional use permit for the construction and operation of the Red Barn Schoolhouse Public Charter K-5 school was unanimously approved on October 22nd, 2025 by the Pottawatomie County Zoning Board of Adjustment for a 5.39 acre site adjacent to Crescent City Park with access to nearby natural areas for instructional use. Since March 2025, the school has worked with DLR Group to complete preliminary and schematic designs. And in December 2025, selected Elkhorn West Construction as construction manager at risk, with construction anticipated to begin in spring 2026 and potentially be completed by August 2026. Contingency planning has been conducted with the Hitchcock Nature Center and Green Hills AEA, though the preferred option remains opening on the permanent site with alternative short-term arrangements pursued only if necessary. Finally, their update reads that enrollment demand is strong, with all 40 available seats filled on the first day of enrollment and additional families on a wait list, and staffing efforts are underway with Green Hills AEA supporting principal recruitment beginning in February, followed by the hiring of teachers and support staff in spring and PD starting in June. That concludes their written update. Then shifting gears into the Division of Pre-K through 12 Learning, the department is excited to launch its 8th round of Letters Professional Learning. As you know, the department is also utilizing its block grant for federal state level ESEA funds approved by the U.S. Department of Education through its Unified Allocation Plan to continue to invest in statewide evidence-based letters and literacy professional learning. Participating Iowa pre-K through 8 educators will strengthen foundational skills for reading and writing instruction, including phonological awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary comprehension, and written language. Up to 400 licenses are available in this cohort, and already more than 6,200 educators across Iowa have completed or are currently participating in department-sponsored letters training. More information is, of course, available on our literacy instruction webpage. We're also excited to host a no-cost professional learning conference called Every Learner Forward this summer at the Iowa Event Center, July 7th through 9th. It's a 3-day event that will feature sessions that are designed to support educators in engaging all learners and promoting success across grade levels and content areas. Session topics will include engaging learners with access for all, engaging learners with emphasis on scaffolding, monitoring, and accountability, language support strategies for English learners, CHAMPS safe and civil early stage intervention, and all of our specially designed instructional packages focused on preschool, K-6 literacy, secondary transitions, behavior, and more. Registration and the full agenda will be shared soon, but please consider adding this impactful learning opportunity to your calendars now. As we continue to celebrate America 250, the semi-quincentennial or the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, we are also launching a new webinar series for K-12 educators. The series highlights important historical events in America's founding to support classroom instruction and student engagement. And the first session was held on January 26th. It was in partnership with the State Historical Society and was the first of a 2-part series exploring the lives and legacies of some of Iowa's notable revolutionaries. Part 2 will be held on February 16th. And additional webinars are scheduled throughout March and April and include sessions with the Cato Institute Sphere focused on civil discourse and the American founding, ISU focused on Carrie Chapman Catt and the 19th Amendment, and Florida's Joint Center for Citizenship focused on our founding principles and the U.S. Constitution. No registration is required. Each webinar series will be recorded and then it's uploaded to our Iowa America 250 webinar series webpage. And of course, this work builds on an update we provided at our last board meeting to student engagement opportunities, the Iowa America 250 Student Contest, and the Iowa America 250 Veterans Research Project. And then shifting into standards, the Computer Science, Data Science, and Artificial Intelligence Standards Revision Team met for the first time on January 26th. As always, the revision team, that first team, includes representation from a number of stakeholder groups across the state, including higher education, content specialists, administrators, teacher leaders, classroom teachers, families, industry, and community members. There are 5 meetings that are scheduled with the final meeting on March 31st. Then they'll make proposed draft recommendations. The team serves in an advisory capacity to the department. Will then seek public comment through a public survey and through listening sessions. We'll convene a second team, the standards review team, and then we will incorporate that feedback in the recommendation that is ultimately made to the State Board of Education per our standard process. To provide a brief update on early learning standards, the preschool program standards, this past October had a review team of early childhood educators and stakeholders propose potential updates. As a frame of reference, the program standards outline what the program should include, similar to what Chapter 12 looks like in K-12, while the academic standards define what students should know and be able to do at a specified grade level. Now, the review team has finalized their work and the department is seeking public input on those changes. Additionally, there is a public forum that is being held this afternoon at the department on those proposed changes from 4 to 6 p.m. And then ultimately that feedback will be incorporated in the final recommendations presented to the state board. For the Iowa Early Learning Standards, again, akin to those academic standards, we are in the process of convening the review team, the second team that will review the public feedback and recommend additional proposed changes that will be incorporated in what the department presents to the state board for consideration. The deadline to apply for that review team is February 25th, and then full day meetings for that team are in March and April. And then finally, want to provide a brief update on the STEM Scale Up program. Beginning this next school year, the 26-27 school year, we are implementing a new 3-year STEM Scale Up model featuring 3 program offerings to best meet the needs of Iowa educators. As a reminder, STEM Scale Up provides high quality education programs to pre-K through 12 youth in school and out of school, supported by training for educators to implement the initiatives effectively. The 3 programs are STEM Wonder for pre-K through 3, provided by the Iowa Region's Center for Early Developmental Education at UNI. Exploring AI and the Future of Work for grades 4 through 12, presented by Code Joy. And then First Tech Challenge for grades 7 through 12, presented by the College of Engineering at the University of Iowa. And happy to dive into any of those initiatives, should there be questions. And then shifting gears to the Teacher Quality and Innovation Division. Recently, just on February 9th, the department's application to serve on the Performance Standard Setting Committee for a revised assessment in ELA and math closed. We received hundreds of applications from educators, administrators, and members of the public to participate in the Performance Standard Setting Committee for our new assessments in ELA and math. They will cover updated rigorous academic standards, which were adopted by the State Board of Education in 2024, implemented for the first time in school year 24-25, and now we're in our second year of implementation. And as you know, Iowa's academic standards are rigorous and must be aligned to, our assessment must be aligned to those standards. We are currently reviewing those applications, and the standard setting committee will convene on June 8th and conclude on June 12th. The department also added new district level performance ratings to the Iowa School Performance Profiles. This online tool shows how public schools and districts performed on required measures, and as you know, was developed to meet both state and federal accountability requirements. School report cards. They now include both district and school level scores and performance ratings for all public school districts and schools, as well as data by student group across accountability measures. The same methodology and the same cut scores were used for determining the district level performance ratings as the school level performance ratings. And as a reminder, the indicators in our accountability system are proficiency, focusing on ELA, math, and science, growth, chronic absenteeism, and an innovative attendance growth indicator, graduation rates, both 4 and 5 year, and then post-secondary readiness outcomes. So attainment of a work-based learning experience, attainment of an industry recognized credential, and attainment of college credit. The new district ratings show more than 58% of Iowa's 325 school districts and 4 public charter schools during the 24-25 school year performed in the top 3 of 6 rating categories with over 88% rating acceptable or higher. The new district level ratings advance our unified accountability system and school improvement system and provide important data that helps advise the department's district-wide supports and improvement planning, in addressing high need areas and improving the outcomes of all students with a focus on student groups. And then the inclusion of these district level ratings also align with national best practice in public transparency, accountability, and support structures. Shifting into the divisions of special education, the department
Sorry.
Yes.
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mary.
You're muted.
Thank you.
Mary, you're muted.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Brooke. As you were talking about the new school and district ratings, I think I heard correctly that our public charters will be included in those ratings as well.
Of course, yes.
Okay,
And I think what's unique is generally a public charter school, it serves as its own school district, its own LEA. So their school ratings and their district ratings are functionally the same if it is a single school.
thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? This is a robust update. But digging into the Division of Special Education, the IDA grant application, we were able to make our first round of awards for the IDA-DA continuous improvement grants to support those districts that are identified on both IDA-DA and our ESEA accountability system. And we're now offering a second grant application opportunity for eligible districts. The purpose of the grant is to strengthen the coherence and sustainability between our IDEA-DA and ESSA or ESEA school improvement efforts and to support district leadership, capacity, infrastructure, coaching systems, and school improvement efforts. These grants support evidence-based practices implemented with fidelity. They ensure students with disabilities receive high-quality instruction across all educational settings, and ultimately they are intended to narrow achievement gaps experienced by students with disabilities. Any district with a priority or needs improvement rating on the Iowa School District Performance Profiles and a level 2 or 3 IDA-DA designation is eligible to apply for the grant. And the application is open now and the deadline is Friday, February 20th. These grants are in addition to new ESSA district level grants that are supporting districts identified as priority and have already been awarded. Related to IDA Part B and C, we have a special education school business operations team facilitated statewide webinar that occurred on February 10th that introduced the field to the new IDA PB and C, so parts B and C application. This online application for funds replaces the previous paper pencil IDA grant application process and moves it online. And a recording of the training is available on the Department's Special Education Finance webpage. Just as a reminder to connect this, the department had historically assigned special education fiscal monitoring and oversight to the AEA system. We presented to the state board on the findings and corrective actions provided by the U.S. Department of Education's OSEP, the Office of Special Education Programs. And this new application process is also a part of the department's efforts to correct those identified needs and support those identified needs. And then finally, the department's policy and practice webinar series continues with one held just yesterday focused on behavior and discipline, and which at least one school administrator from each school district was required to participate. We've got additional webinars and topics focused on extended school year, FAPE and special requests, dispute resolution, and more throughout the rest of the school year into the summer. And those recordings and resources are are always available on our policy and practice webinar page. We've also launched webinars focused on non-public special education. And our first non-public school special education webinar is scheduled for February 18th. It will focus on the required consultation process for IDEA equitable services and FAPE. And then the March session will focus on Child Find. And then finally, shifting to the Division of Higher Education, this month is also CTE month. And in celebration, the department is featuring CTE educators and programs in headline stories and on social media and in profiles in excellence. So you are also welcome to join us in celebrating CTE month, and CTE Day at the Capitol is next Thursday, February 19th. Related to federal implementation work, Iowa is also poised to take a leadership role in the early adoption of Workforce Pell, which was authorized in July of last year. The Workforce Pell program opens up federal Pell Grant eligibility to students enrolled in eligible 8 to 15 week-long programs that are aligned to workforce needs at accredited institutions. Programs must meet quality standards, including a 70% completion rate and a 70% job placement rate in high-skill, high-wage, and in-demand occupations, or H3 occupations. In addition, a program's tuition cannot exceed the difference between the median earnings of the program participant and 150% of the federal poverty level. And then governors are tasked with developing and publishing the state's protocol for identifying eligible programs and the availability of key data metrics, including data for non-credit programs, and enhanced wage data is essential for successful planning and implementation and compliance with the Workforce Pell requirements. And then the department recently was able to make awards to 10 community colleges, totaling collectively $75,000 in Pathway to Completion grants. As a reminder, this program is modeled after Hawkeye Community College's successful Take Two program, which demonstrated how a support in small amounts of institutional debt can ensure greater completion rates and remove barriers to completion. This initiative, again, focuses on re-engaging students who have paused or who have stopped out of their education due to small amounts of outstanding institutional debt, and is ultimately intended to help Iowans re-enroll, graduate, and expand their access to in-demand, high-wage careers across our state. And then related to our Gear Up implementation, Gear Up Iowa held its annual professional development conference on February 3rd to continue to develop actionable strategies to advance college and career readiness for students in our Gear Up Iowa partner school districts. As a reminder, Gear Up stands for Gaining Early Awareness and Readiness for Undergraduate Programs, and it assists students most in need of support in preparing, enrolling, and persisting in post-secondary education. Iowa Gear Up began with its first cohort back in 2008 and is currently administering its fourth, serving more than 7,500 students across 13 different districts. And then finally, in partnership with Iowa Workforce Development, the department continues to provide its Work-Based Learning webinar series. The latest webinar was held on February 10th. It focused on construction and advanced manufacturing careers. The March webinar will focus on incorporating industry recognized credential attainment into work-based learning experiences. And as always, those recordings and materials are on our Career Connected Learning webpage, as well as Iowa Workforce Development's webpage. And then very briefly in summary, Since our last meeting on January 15th, the Child Development Coordinating Council met in late January, and the Computer Science, Data Science, and AI Standards Revision Team met in late January. And then the SBRC, the School Budget Review Committee, met on January 27th. You'll receive an in-depth update later today. Other boards convening include the Non-Public School Advisory Committee, which you'll receive an update on here shortly. The Board of Educational Examiners meets tomorrow. The Iowa College Aid Board of Commissioners meets March 6th. And then the Community College Advisory Committee meets next on March 11th. And then finally, the Iowa Dyslexia Board will meet on February 26th. And then our SEEP, our Special Education Advisory Panel, will meet on February 27th. With that, welcome any questions or feedback that you might have.
Questions or feedback for the director?
I do have a question. Director, you mentioned that the 8th round of letters training will commence shortly. Out of curiosity, do we know what percentage of our teaching staff is currently using that letters program in their instruction?
So probably the best data to speak to that would be the survey data for completers of our letters professional learning, which show in the high 90%, I think it's 98, 99% of educators who've completed letters have indicated that they have increased their ability to implement evidence-based instruction, and that they have implemented greater alignment to the science of reading and evidence-based instruction. So that surveys both the knowledge and then the implementation.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or feedback?
I have a comment. At our non-public school advisory committee meeting, Josh Bauer mentioned, and the entire group concurred, that the director's comments about the Iowa Unified Allocation Plan, the first in the nation, if you will, some of them had attended the meeting that you referred to, Director Snow, and we're very impressed and wanted to be sure that I mentioned at this meeting their gratitude and congratulations to you and the staff and the administration of DOE in this regard. They were very impressed, and so I'm conveying that to you now.
Thank you on behalf of the team.
Anything else for our director? If not, Brian, give us an update, please.
Sure, I'd be happy to. We met on February 10. We had for us what I'd consider a robust agenda as well. We started with Jay Pennington presenting a summary of non-public school enrollment. We went through that in various classifications or strata of groups from the 15-16 school year till 25-26, those 11 years, all the various numbers that Jay's office has prepared. The interesting thing was non-public school enrollment increased about 1% over that period of time. We also looked at the process of developing and adopting state standards and reviewed the social studies state standards. Stephanie Wager did that. Eric St. Clair came in and gave us an overview of the department bills that the director just referred to. Eric Heitz presented to that group the 3 new accreditors: Apple, Array Global, and Society for Classical Learning, that this board had approved as independent accreditors that are available. There was various presentations about feedback on various topics and webinar ideas for special education. including consultation, child find, FAPE, IEPs, dispute resolution, finance, and discipline. Lots of questions in that regard. We received an overview of the title program, contacts, webinars, and guidance. Deanne Sesker, the new school safety consultant for DOE, came in and was introduced, and she discussed her role as the school safety consultant. And there was a bit of discussion about her interplay with other school safety aspects of Iowa government, including the governor's school safety commission, from whom we have heard in the past. Jay came back and reviewed the process for non-public schools to report students that do not complete the state assessments. Apparently that's not required, but it's data they want to accumulate in the same fashion that the public schools are required to do. There was
Brian, about what percentage, if since it's not required, do you know the percentage of students who complete them at non-public schools, or Jay?
I am here. Good morning. The number's really low. This is the first year of full implementation of the ESA program. So our purpose here is to just ensure that the requirement that ESA students that do take the assessment, that we ensure that those percentages remain high. The number is relatively low. I mean, it was something like 50 students last year.
Oh.
Yeah, it was, my recollection, it was very low, a little over a dozen.
Oh, okay.
So folks are taking the requirements seriously, and we just, as an agency, need to ensure that continues.
Okay. Thank you.
We also, Tina Whaler presented on the Teacher of the Year nomination process and reminded that group that non-public school teachers were eligible to be nominated for that. As a matter of fact, there is a regional Teacher of the Year who's teaching at a non-public school. And I think other than Josh's comment to the director and staff of DOE, that's a summary of our meeting. Our next meeting is May 12, I believe. Questions, comments? Mary, is there anything that you want to add?
Well, I do want to add, since we started convening as this group, we always had an agenda. But as time went on, our agendas became more robust, as Brian shared in the beginning remarks. And this is really good information for these people to be aware of and participate in. So thank you to the staff for providing all of these reports. Much appreciated.
Agreed. That's my report.
Questions or comments for Brian or Mary? Hearing none, thank you so much for your work on that committee. It's an important committee for us. We'll move on to item 3 on the agenda, which is the consent agenda, which includes the January 15th meeting minutes and the religious groups exempt from school standards.
I would move.
It's been moved by Cass to approve.
Second.
Second by Todd. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. The consent agenda is approved. Item 4, rules, chapter 120. Thomas.
Good morning, President Robbins, members of the board, distinguished department colleagues. This might be the nerdiest rule I have ever presented. It is basically striking one cross-reference between the dispute resolution process for early access, which is infants and toddlers with disabilities from birth to the third birthday, and special education, Chapter 41, which is age 3 to end of special education entitlement, typically graduation with high school diploma. So the current Chapter 120 contains an internal cross-reference to this rule in Chapter 41, which makes applicable all of the procedures according to these rules, Chapter 41, cross-referenced into Chapter 120. Chapter 41 and Chapter 120 have different decision timelines. The decision timelines in Chapter 120 are much shorter because it's in infants and toddlers. It's only a 3-year period of entitlement. There are some procedures required in Chapter 41 that aren't necessary or even allowed in Chapter 120. So to get rid of that potential friction point, that's the recommendation that the early access team and the special education team, they saw this potential friction point, brought it to my attention, and that's the recommendation of the department to revise, amend Chapter 120 to remove potentially problematic cross-reference to Chapter 41.
So the recommendation is to give notice of the intent to amend.
Notice of intent to amend, correct.
Questions for Thomas? Hearing none, I would call for a motion.
A motion to amend chapter 120.
Okay.
Second.
All right, by Todd, second by Mary. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Thank you, Thomas.
And my goal will be to find a rulemaking in the future that is even more nerdy than this one. So
Set your goals high, Thomas. Go away. All right, item 5 on the agenda, Workforce Training and Economic Development Fund Report Plan. Robin.
Do I control from here, Jeremy, to get it to presentation mode? Okay. Oh, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Robin Schaefer Lilienthal, Administrative Consultant for the Bureau of Community Colleges. Part of my responsibility is to prepare the Workforce Training and Economic Development Fund Progress Report and Annual Plan. This program is known by its acronym as WTED, and I'm here today to give you an overview of this report and share some key highlights that are contained within it. The WTED program was established over 2 decades ago as part of the Grow Iowa Values Fund, or Iowa Code 260C.18A, and receives funding through the Iowa Skilled Worker and Job Creation Fund. The title of that fund is an indicator of the purpose for the WTED funds. Each of Iowa's community colleges receive an annual allocation to develop projects that educate and train skilled workers. The report that you received as part of your board packet is divided into 2 sections. The first section is called the Progress Report and covers the fiscal year 2025 actual program activity. And the second section is called the Plan and details the fiscal year 2026 anticipated project spending. So first, I'll discuss the FY24 Progress Report. The historical allocation for all community colleges is $15 million, and each college is allocated monies based on the community college state funding formula. To give you an idea of the funding range, the smallest college allocation is $282,500, and the largest college allocation is just under $4 million. As you may guess, allocations vary due to enrollment patterns at the community college. Code outlines 10 potential project areas, but colleges have typically focused on the areas highlighted on this slide. However, over 93% of projects fall into three categories: career and technical education programs, business and industry training, and career academies. Programs offered within the projects are expected to educate and train participants for employment. Code further specifies that at least 70% of funding must be allocated to targeted program clusters in advanced manufacturing, information technology and insurance, alternative and renewable energy, or life sciences. That includes biotechnology, healthcare, and nursing. Historically, the community colleges exceed that mandate, and FY25 is no exception, with 89.2% of the programs falling into targeted clusters. Advanced manufacturing and nursing account for 59% of the program areas. This aligns with the priority areas of significant need for workers in the state. The total dollars to support nursing and healthcare programs increased 80% to over $4.3 million spent to support this high-need targeted program. The WTED report provides additional information illustrating how statewide budget was spent in direct expenses and across both project areas and program clusters. Also in FY25, just over 87,000 participants were involved with projects receiving WTED funding, a 9.2% increase over FY24. 71% were non-credit students pursuing short-term in-demand training programs. There were also over 78,000 program completers, which included 41% of non-credit completers involved in business and industry training or retraining for jobs within those companies. Something to note about the participant and completer data is that this report covers the fiscal year, but programs overlap fiscal year. So some completers may have been counted as a participant in a prior year, and other participants may not complete programs until next year. Further, the report lists businesses served by WTED projects. In FY25, over 3,900 businesses benefited from WTED projects, a 68% increase over last year. Further, 43% of the businesses were identified as small businesses or entrepreneurs. As indicated earlier, Part 2 of the report outlines the FY26 WTED plans. Per code expectations, each college submitted an anticipated plan for spending their WTED allocation to the department. For FY26, the colleges anticipate 85% of their funding being allocated to the targeted program clusters. They further anticipate similar budget allocations to the Career Academy, career and technical education, and business and industry training project areas. Finally, the plan estimates 73,851 participants, and the community colleges will work with over 3,100 businesses. Each of the college's FY26 plans are included in the WTED report. This concludes the Workforce Training and Economic Development Fund annual report presentation. As required in administrative code, I submit these plans to you for your approval. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Robin, do the colleges contribute more money than what's allocated here from these programs?
In terms of from other sources that the colleges may have, often that is absolutely the case. What the colleges describe is braiding together different funding sources, whether those are from tuition revenues or state allocations or other grants and opportunities to really put together great programs. So the WTED funds don't necessarily solely fund a project with 100% of the resources needed for that project. Often it's combined with others.
Do you have any guesstimate as far as
No, I do. That's a really great question, but it is not a question that we ask at this time in the reporting. So I couldn't answer it.
I'm not asking you to do that. I'm
Yeah.
just curious.
Just curious, yeah.
I have a question in my, just with community colleges, do they work extensively with economic groups, like review the labor shed studies and?
Yes, the colleges, their business teams and their academic teams, all the teams that are involved in creating programs, whether those are for credit programs, non-credit programs, business training programs, are involved collaboratively within their communities in a number of ways. And each community, sometimes it's a county level, sometimes it's a city level. It really kind of depends on what the region needs, but all of the resources are collaboratively reviewed together through a variety of ways so that they know what the needs are within their region.
So back to the allocation, you mentioned like one college was 200 some thousand, under 4 million. So how do they compete in those areas when they have less dollars compared to, do they have to solicit for additional funding? How does that work? Because
Each college is,
yeah,
it is a huge gap, and that really is based on the regional size covered. So we have a variety of representation within the community colleges in terms of what they, how many counties they serve, what size of populations they serve. And so the community college funding formula is based on a kind of a enrollment and other factors. And then that particular formula is used to then allocate this 15 million. So proportionally, those resources are available on that varying size. So it does seem, I'm sure, to think of a college region that may have only $282,000 to spend, but that's a smaller college, smaller region. And so they're parlaying those resources together regionally to meet the needs in those spaces.
thank you.
Part of that too is that all the community colleges don't offer the same breadth of programming.
So,
Robin.
John, I have a question. So this report, is this used by Bureau of Community Colleges for its oversight of each community college? Is that what this is for? Is this where it goes, to Bureau of Community Colleges?
So I represent the Bureau of Community College, and my responsibilities are to receive the data from the colleges related to what is required in code. And then I put that together in a report to ensure that we're reporting back out to the state board as required, but also out to the field so that we're holding accountable and all the colleges know where the resources are being spent, how they're being spent, and the Bureau of Community Colleges does as well.
So
Can you
if
just to
the
clarify?
community, go ahead.
Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead
I
and
was
finish your
just
thought, Brian.
I was just noticing on page 6 of the report that a community college can modify their WTED plan without, I guess, department approval. So does that happen? And if so, to what degree does it happen?
So the plans that the colleges submit are based on anticipated needs. And what this plan does is allow that should something arise within the course of the fiscal year that becomes a higher priority for their region and for their needs, they can reallocate those resources as necessary. When there is a significant change in plan, the colleges will contact me to discuss those changes. But generally, the colleges follow their plans very closely with how they intended to spend the resources in terms of project areas, the program areas, and the way that they do that. So it is allowed, but it's rare.
Thank you.
Right there.
Oh, just wanted to add an additional point of information. This is not a report for the department. This is a report the department prepares for the State Board of Education to approve and then to submit to the General Assembly. So that's just a clarification of the role. And then Board Member Kane, to your good question, there's obviously actual expenditures reporting in this. So that is an accountability function that is in place, but it highlights a potential area of improvement. So thank you for bringing attention to it.
Other questions or comments?
Meant by nurse.
What is meant by nursing?
Yes, LPN, RN, what type?
So the code allows for anything in those life sciences that includes nursing, healthcare programs. So it could include all levels of nursing. It could also include dental hygiene, radiologic tech, surge tech, any nurse aid, any of the programs related to the healthcare industry.
Thank you very much.
Robin, trying to think how to ask the question, but there was a significant increase in the number of businesses that the colleges were working with this year. What accounted for that, or what drove that?
I think I can't tell you specifically what drove that with each college area, but I think that there was a greater attempt to capture all of the businesses that they do work with, where in the past, maybe they, in some of the reporting, it was not as stringent in terms of that they were capturing if one employee represented one business. It might have been more like we're working with these broader groups of businesses. So better reporting on the college part.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? Hearing none, the recommendation is to approve the WTED progress report for the previous fiscal year and WTED plans for the current fiscal year.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Brian and second by Brooke. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you. You're welcome.
All right. Item 6, charter school contract approval. Barbara and Thomas.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's nice to see you all again.
Welcome, welcome.
I appreciate your time today to consider our charter contracts for the 3 founding groups approved to open charter schools in Iowa at the January State Board meeting. My name's Barbara Oland. I'm joined by Thomas Mays, but also Tom Redfield via Zoom as well. And I think we're going to start this conversation with Thomas providing an overview of charter contract details, and then we'll transition back to me and continue with the charter contract discussion.
So after the board approved the applications at the last meeting, Team Charter as well as me met with, I don't know about on Team Charter or an affiliate member, but
You're the legal counsel. Yes, affiliate member.
I'm their mascot.
That's
So we met with each of the founding groups and walked through the details of the sample contract. And again, it's a sample contract. It's not, it wasn't enacted by rule. It's a starting point for discussion. And there were a couple of things that came out through the discussion that will, some particular to the particular model, whether it's a founding group or a school board founded model. There were some suggestions to make some changes to language that was maybe a couple of sessions ago, such as references to gender identity, references to internal cross-references that moved when something got stuck by the legislature in and bumped everything down. There was a lot of cleanup of cross-references. regarding the founding group state board model, there's some significant revision that was bargained with the founding groups, that team's counsel, who has a background in not-for-profit corporation law. And the revision to that is the school itself is not a party to the contract because the school doesn't exist until the contract's signed. The founding group is the party to the contract, and that's Horizon Science Academy in Cedar Rapids. So the founding group will sign the contract. Horizon then starts to exist when the contract is entered, and then the baton will be passed from the founding group to the governing board. So the governing board can't sign a document creating itself when it doesn't exist. It's almost like theological in its import, but that's the basis for the substantial revisions. So rather than the contract being with Horizon Science Academy, the contract is with Concept and named individuals, the charter management organization, or the education service provider, which the law, Chapter 256E, allows a CMO to be a founding group. There's some substantial revisions to that particular contract. Those revisions not being necessary for the two school board, state board models because the school board already exists.
So Thomas, what implications does that have as far as the application then?
Well, we're going to take this feedback and revise, maybe have a parallel application. So like application and sample contract if you were a founding group. Separate application and sample contract if your founding group is a school board. The language will, this cycle is the first cycle where we had school board, state board models using the sample contract. That was helpful to us. So that's the big sort of the global view of some of the changes that you'll be seeing to the three contracts. The most significant changes are to Horizon Academy, where the contract is with the founding group, not the school.
So a reminder, we do have separate applications. We just entered into some changes or
Right.
differences in the contract. So we do have separate applications for.
Thanks
school
for-
board and-
Thanks for correcting your mascot.
Okay, so what's being presented today is the result of those negotiation sessions between the charter and the legal counsel for the charter or charter management organization and our legal counsel. Charter school team support. So that's what we're presenting today. And we're going to begin with Future Frontiers. Future Frontiers, just a reminder of some information here before we go into questions, is that Future Frontiers is a school board model, and it will be located in Fredericksburg. The school district is Sumner Fredericksburg School District, serving grades 9 through 12. They hope to open in August of 2026, so for the 26-27 school year. They did request 2 waivers or exemptions, but there are 2 waivers that we have available within the application itself. One is the offer and teach, and the other is number of days or hours required by law. So today we are joined by Ryan Cunningham, the superintendent of Sumner Fredericksburg Community School District, to answer questions on behalf of Future Frontiers and the contract. And it's at this point that we would open it up for questions on Future Frontiers contract.
Good morning, Ryan.
You're on mute, Ryan. We're having technical difficulties. We still can't hear you. I'm wondering why. Is that something that we can drive, Jeremy, to unmute him? Because He's unmuted, but it looks like he's muted, but he unmuted himself.
On his end.
We still can't hear you, Ryan. I wonder if you're able to get IT in to help you.
You want me to put him?
Yes, please.
Okay. Ryan, we're going to give you a call, put you on speaker.
Hey, Ryan, how's it going?
I'm going to put you by the
There you
speaker.
go.
So you are now on with the board.
Okay, thank you.
Questions for Ryan or Barbara or Thomas with this contract? Yeah, a question about, excuse me, I always get choked up at these meetings. Ryan, refresh our memories as far as with the exemptions that you're requesting in. How are those exemptions?
Yeah.
How are those exemptions gonna pay back dividends as far as student achievement or student performance?
Yeah, so the first one is on the offer and teach. What we asked for were exemptions in regard to having to have everything in the offer and teach because of the personalization that we're looking for students. So for example, in year number 1, we're looking to have 30 students. And if we have no students who, let's say, are a freshman that would need English 1 because let's say they already have it, we would like the ability to not have to have that as part of the school in that year. We do anticipate over time, because our graduation requirements, if someone were to graduate, does require the essentially the same core as any other school district as required by the state, that will probably teach all of these classes, but the personalized structure of the charter really is something we want to focus on, and not giving resources to something that we don't need because the students don't need it that year or that semester is something that we thought would be helpful. The second one was in regard to the hours. And, you know, we have a fairly normal schedule, but at the same time, it's a competency-based system. And so our internships, which is a significant part of this, has a minimum hours of 40 hours per internship. But the classes themselves, for the credits that the students need, some students are going to be able to move quicker or do some compacting, if you will, of credits in one class where it makes sense. And that competency-based piece is just not a time model; it's a learning model. And so those two pieces are things that we asked for in the waiver to really help with student learning.
So these students will still have the same graduation requirements of the students who are not in the charter?
The state mandated, requirements are still part of it. An example, specifically comparing Sumner Fredericksburg and the charter school, we have a 56 credit structure in Future Frontiers. Sumner Fredericksburg has 52. We added in a couple additional components because there's some unique learning opportunities through a retreat at the beginning of the school year and setting their individual goals, as well as a credit structure for a capstone that students will complete at the end of each year, which is unique unique to the charter, but the credits are solid, and we'll give them a great high school diploma, and also make it very transferable. So if a student comes for just a year, they'll transfer very well to a school that they may be going to across our state, another high school.
So as a follow-up, since your application was approved, what interest or any has been generated in your local community?
A tremendous amount, and not just in our local community, but from other students in other areas as well. We've had a number of people reach out. We are in the process right now of getting ready to launch our website, and with has an FAQ on it and our enrollment policy and all of those kind of things once the contract here is approved. And we'll be reaching out with forms really across the region in order to generate that understanding for families and students that are interested. And we anticipate pretty quickly filling up with our 30 students and going into our lottery system here this spring to identify which of those students will be part of the first cohort of Future Frontiers.
Refresh my memory. What is the date as far as student applications?
So the enrollment policy that we're looking for is it's a tiered system, which April 1st, this is something we didn't talk about specifically in the last State Board of Education meeting, but April 1st is the first kind of application deadline with up to 15 slots open into a lottery. And then all of those are filled. The next enrollment time is going to be May 1st, and then the final one would be July 1st. And we did a tiered lottery system because as the word gets out, while we certainly want to let students in right away, sometimes it takes a while for people to hear about it. And we want to give opportunity if someone hears about it later in the spring or early summer, that they still have an opportunity to be part of it, realizing that in year one, we're going to limit it at 30 students.
Other questions for Ryan? I don't want to bring out any human interest stories about Ryan, or should we move on?
He's solid. Like I said last month, Sumner Fredericksburg.
Okay, the recommendation is to approve the contract for Future Frontiers.
Second.
Moved by Todd and second by Brooke. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Congratulations, Ryan, and best wishes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Ryan.
Okay. Item 7 on the agenda, and just a heads up for those further down the road, we're going to take a break after the STEM Innovation High School Charter. So next one is item 7, which is the Horizon Science Academy, Cedar Rapids. Is that even the accurate agenda item title?
What's the correct name of the school? So it's still the correct, yes.
Okay.
So we're going to be talking about Horizon Science, Concept Schools, as Thomas said, is the name on the contract. And Thomas already explained why that is. They're going to be located in Cedar Rapids for grades K-9, K through 9, and anticipating opening then in August of 2026, so the 26-27 school year. They did ask for a waiver of offer and teach because they have a phase-in model. So they're going to phase in all their grades over time and anticipate they're going to submit a plan to offer and teach by the end of year 3. So we're joined here today by Christopher Murphy, the Chief Growth and Strategy Officer and Iowa Superintendent for Concept Schools, to answer questions on behalf of this contract. And it is now at this point, we'd like to open up for questions.
Okay, questions? Just want to reiterate is that the intent is as the grade levels are added, that offer and teach will go away as far as the exemption.
That is what was approved in the application.
Okay. So when we look at the contract with the revisions that were promoted, Thomas, you were fine with everything that was negotiated. We don't have to be concerned about going backwards and looking at other contracts, or just going to go from this place forward. Is that
I think from this place forward, the schools that are up and running under prior drafts that nobody had raised this concern about, they're up and running. They already exist. This is just precision going forward. So I've got no concerns about the prior contracts.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, is that as a state board, we can't require a specific contract. Is that right? We can encourage using this template. Is that correct? Or
I mean, your ultimate power is approving the contract. So if a template makes it easier to analyze and compare, there's no statutory authority yet or rulemaking authority yet for a required contract. But it is a matter of convenience for both you and the applicants.
Yeah, for those board members who weren't here when we approved the first round of contracts, it was confusing.
That's an understatement.
Okay, it's very confusing.
So Thomas, I have a question. So how does the contract become binding on the actual school nonprofit corporation?
Becomes binding on them based on the fact that they're taking the benefit of it. So the governing board, this becomes sort of like their constitution. And they're, by accepting charter school funds, they agree to the performance framework, they agree to the terms of this contract. So that's how this becomes binding on them. And just like by operation of Chapter 256E.
So, but there's a non-assignment clause in here. So it's not, I mean, generally, if you had sponsor X sign a contract for school Y, then when X signs and Y is created, you to sign the contract. We're not doing that. We're just saying it's applicable because they're taking the benefit of it.
It's applicable because they're taking the benefit. It's applicable because the bylaws that they agree to operate under are incorporated in this contract. It's applicable for a multitude of reasons. The non-assignment clause is between founding group, not between founding group to the charter school that the contract creates. Another benefit of this non-assignment clause is reflected in the statute, where a founding group cannot use contract A to open school B. Each school has to have its own approved contract. It can come from the same founding group, but each school's contract is judged on its own merits. So in the context of 256E, the rest of this contract, my concern, I have no concerns with this non-assignment clause.
And could we, I don't know, was there any discussion about just having Horizon Science Academy incorporate as a nonprofit up front? I mean, that's just a $50 filing fee or something instead of doing all this.
At any event, the statute requires the contract not to be with the school, but to be with the founding group.
All right. Just like it's with the school district.
Right. The school district already exists, though.
Correct. Okay, thanks.
Thomas, help me understand this. Since the school isn't part of this contract, where does the school fit into this?
The founding group, so if you go back up to it is a contract for the establishment and operation of the school.
Okay.
So the contract it creates the school, the state board and the founding group contract so that for the creation of the school. So all of this is about the school.
So once this is executed, that day is when the school starts to exist.
The school exists. Yeah. So the not-for-profit corporation that's going to run the school, I mean, to Board Member Kane's point, that might be another approach or some technical assistance to provide in the future. But the school itself has no authority to operate. Even if there's a not-for-profit corporation that would run it, it has no authority to operate until this contract is signed.
Gotcha.
So down the road, it's playing devil's advocate. If something would happen where the school isn't functioning like it should for whatever reason, the decision that comes back to the school, the Board of Education, is that if we do not want to renew that contract, does that go to the sponsoring organization or the school itself? How does that work?
So renewal going forward, everything going forward is going to be with the school. So the renewal application, the governing board files the renewal application. The governing board is responsible for the performance framework. The governing board is responsible for any sanctions or seeking any amendments to this contract. So the founding group gets it to this point. The metaphor of the baton pass. The baton passes to the governing board after this is executed.
Chris, would you like to address the board at all?
I just want to say thank you for your support and your thoughtful questions. Just to add some extra context, the board is in the process of incorporating. We have 3 governing board members that are local to the Cedar Rapids community. We have a local business leader who's been in the educational adjacent business for 25 years. We have an electrical engineer as part of Collins Aerospace, and we also have an entrepreneur from a local community member who is knee-deep in STEM and AI technology and supporting the youth of the Cedar Rapids community. So the board will incorporate in a matter of days, board, and also then they will pass the bylaws, and we are well on track to open up this fall. In terms of enrollment, I can share that without any major marketing efforts or boots on the ground efforts, we've reached almost 20% of our enrollment goal for our year 1. Just even over the last weekend, I received 5 different phone calls from local families, really excited, looking forward to new change, new public school options in Cedar Rapids. And we're thrilled to bring this option to the Cedar Rapids community.
Any questions or comments for Barbara, Thomas, or Chris?
So thank you for talking about the enrollment. So you've already started enrolling, or will that start after this, or is it just interest or?
Fair question. So to be clear, it's just interest forms at this point. Nothing is binding. We have we'll start the formal enrollment process. It's just a flick of a switch, and we'll transfer from just a basic Google form just to collect emails and interest levels to our school information system, which is PowerSchool. And so that's when we'll begin the formal enrollment process.
Okay. And so you think that you'll be able to hit the 105 minimum or the?
Yes.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I would take a motion.
I move for approval of the contract for Concept.
Is it contract approval for Horizon or Concept?
Concept
That was going to be one of my questions.
Concept schools for the formation of Horizon Science Academy, Cedar Rapids.
Yeah, okay, what he said.
Okay.
That's my motion.
That was actually going to be one of my questions. I forgot. Is it Concept Schools or Horizon? Or is it both?
It's for just to capture the earlier discussion, it's approval of the contract with Concept Schools for the formation of Horizon Science Academy, Cedar Rapids.
All right.
Is your motion still stand?
I'll second.
Whoever Thomas said.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. All right, congratulations. He's gone.
Oh, God. Demoted immediately.
Yeah.
All right, the last charter contract is the STEM Innovation High School.
Great. So just a reminder that STEM Innovation High School is a school board model located in the Council Bluffs Community School District, serving grades 9 through 12. And they hope to open August of 2027, so the 27-28 school year. They did request 2 waivers because of the uniqueness of their program, of their charter school, offer and teach, as well as number of days or hours. We are joined here by Vicki Murillo, Superintendent of Council Bluffs Community School District, as well as Jared Tripp, the School Board President of Council Bluffs, to answer questions on behalf of the STEM Innovation High School and the contract. So we're open for questions.
Questions for the Council Bluffs people?
I do have one question. For the Council Bluffs team, do you expect some of your students will move straight from being in the charter school into workforce? Or do you anticipate that most of your students will go into post-secondary education?
We believe that it will, there will be opportunities for both. So some of our students may want to go right into the workforce, leaving with industry recognized credentials or at least an associate's. And some will go right into the 4-year university from there.
Thank you.
Vicki, tell us more about the rationale for the exemptions that you requested.
Sure. Offer and teach. We are still working through our curriculum and really starting to build the work groups around that, and wanted to ask for that exemption to really look at the course offerings that we are desiring to offer to bring kind of that rich kind of interdisciplinary and project based. And for days and hours, we're looking at possibly running the school year longer or an extended day. And that will all be driven by how the curriculum really forms and comes together and kind of setting the pace for us. So we wanted to make sure that we had the option to look at both of those.
Since your application was approved, has there been any more interest generated in this project?
Oh, yes, so lots of interest. And our students are super excited, and even our interest from the metropolitan area and having contacts from families on the Nebraska side asking about the possibility of being part of the opportunity. So we believe it'll be something to really celebrate and see our students from our Iowa side working and collaborating. What a great model that could be to see both sides, our students learning together and then coming out into either the workforce or attending a university and leaving with that kind of new opportunity to collaborate and build team and just really around the hands-on driven curriculum and the capstone that they'll do at the end their senior year.
So when does groundbreaking begin?
Well, we're hoping the groundbreaking will begin by September of this year.
Other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion.
I would move approval of the contract for STEM Innovation High School.
Second.
It's been moved by Cass and second by Brian. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Congratulations, best wishes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, it is 10:30. We're going to take.
Can I just, there was just something that occurred to me after we went through all of the review with the charter schools and then having the contracts today. I think having this question, and I wish I would have asked it with each one. As we go through the reviews of the applications next time, particularly if there's an opportunity for the schools where students will be moving direct or have the opportunity to move direct into careers, I would love to see a member from workforce development be part of the review team, just so we put that together. Having Director Townsend and the connection between education to employment, I think is critical. So just having that insight and connection, I think would be incredibly valuable and building those relationships.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, that's just that.
All right.
May I ask a clarifying question about that, just so I understand intent? So representative workforce, would it be a representative of Iowa Workforce Development or, okay.
Yeah, I just think it's so important and tying all of those pieces together. So
You have CTE and STEM, and you certainly can look at the application.
yeah.
Did you have?
Yeah, I have a question. So I know, I feel like the governor recently increased funding, I think, for charter schools. Is that wrong?
There's a legislative proposal.
Oh, the proposal, okay.
To ensure all per pupil generated funds.
Okay.
For all students to a charter school.
And that would apply to charter schools that are school district charter schools, or the ones that are school, whatever.
Right.
School board.
Thank you.
School bus, yeah. So that would apply to all of them.
Go ahead.
If it passes, I guess, in the
It would apply to all, but for the school board, state board model, it's belts and suspenders because they're getting that funding anyway because they're part of the school district. For founding group, state board models like the one that you just approved today with Horizon Science Academy, Cedar Rapids, that would be an additional flow of money for certain per pupil generated funds that the director mentioned.
Okay.
And AEA education and media funds also.
Okay.
All right. Let's break. More to tell on that clock. That's 12 minutes.
One thing you might notice thinking, man, there's a lot of to-dos yet. The things that we have to do are really the end of the year surveys, end of the year final reports. So we're really making progress. And then right now, since the last time we met, has really been the implementation of those things. So we're getting there. It might not look like it on paper, but we are making very good progress, in my opinion. Again, Angelisa meets with us weekly and then as a large group monthly to make sure that progress continues. So last time we highlighted a lot of the required actions. This time we'll kind of skim over those so that we can also talk about the recommended things and the actions that we've taken toward meeting some of those. I'll let Chris start.
Okay, so on the first page, the first items that were submitted to you, I just kind of wanted to highlight a few things. In some instances, like number 6 as an example, it went from completed back to progressing. And to Dan's point, a lot of it is circular with the continuous improvement. And at the time that we submitted, we hadn't yet had our monthly meeting for that department as an example. We have completed all of the Child Find training for all of our staff. For the statewide packages, the preschool training and the C2B C2B evaluation training. We're working on, we have the non-attenders scheduled for kids K-12 non-attenders. That is scheduled for starting next week. We're gonna get that finished up. A couple of other items that I think are worth mentioning. We have completed a staff survey and looked at that in some detail. We also established a communications advisory committee to try to get at what parts of communication aren't working in our agency. What do people need and want, and what does that look like? So Dan has met with them a couple of times, and that kind of speaks to the items lower on that page, coming up with how we're going to continue to improve communication out to the field. Otherwise, everything is pretty much just implementation and continuing going. It's going really well. Staff have been receptive. They've appreciated the learning. They thought the child find training was good. They've taken away ahas. They've talked about things they're going to do differently in terms of looking at the whole child. An example would be like if a speech pathologist gets a referral, she said, I'm going to go through this list of questions and make sure that we don't miss something. And so it was really neat to see some of their ahas. So that's kind of the first part.
Chris?
Yep.
Just want to make sure I captured what you said about item 6, where you were progressing, then completed, then progressing. And you also talked about the child find, kind of the same thing where you're progressing, completed, progressing, completed. What happens in those situations where you go from being completed to progressing?
I think what had happened in particular on that one was we hadn't had our monthly check-in that month when the conversation was had with Angelisa and Molly. And so we just marked it back to progressing. This process is set up. It's just an ongoing.
So when we completed this on Monday, that meeting was Wednesday. So we marked it as progressing because it wasn't completed for that month yet.
So really it's in progress.
So we knew this would be confusing when we talked about this. We didn't know the best way how to report that. But the meeting did happen. It was after we had to submit this form for the month.
Okay.
Does that make sense, John?
So it's a month by month?
Yes. We just decided.
Our little checklist is yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
On the top of page 2, that first section deals with our Lakes Partnership School. We recently have had students transition back to district, so now we'll be able to collect some data. We don't have it yet. Now that we have students returning to their home districts, we'll be able to survey those for some input. We've also will be looking at a similar program that Mississippi Bend operates. I think that's another piece that we want to add to this as far as consistency, even among programs. Recently, we had a visit from a school district from Northwest AEA wanting to also set up a program similar to our Lakes Partnership School and then also the Mississippi Bend. So what I'm hoping is that we maybe have a few more of us running programs like this that we can work together to then implement consistency statewide. Child Find.
Yep. So on the next item, just an update on Child Find. I'd mentioned that we've gotten all of the training done. Our staff have submitted their self-reflections. We have started reviewing those of our staff. The AEA system has set up a process so each agency reviews a random sample, but in our agency, we want to review one from every provider because we feel like that's an area of need. So we've done about a dozen we've been through. And one thing we've noticed with those baseline evaluation reports is some of our providers who have worked with the child, maybe as an early access child and then transitioning into preschool, know the child so well, they don't give enough details in the evaluation report for the new teacher, or that's subjectively what it looks like to me. And so it's making for some really good conversations, and we're outlining specific trends that we can provide some specific feedback to providers, but also say, overall, we noticed this with this department or all of evaluators in general. So that has been interesting and kind of fun in a nerdy way to take a peek at that. And so then we'll do another one at the end of the year and compare progress. Am I up next? All right. All right. So our corrective action plan for Part C has gone quite well, we think. We put lots of supports in place. We meet with providers monthly, teams that work around specific districts. And then we also have monthly updates for those groups where we do communication around maybe things that have come from the state or things that we've noticed as we've had our monthly meetings. One of the items noted on there was that we were going to evaluate the effectiveness of how those meetings are going in January and then again at the end of the year. In our January, just preliminary data, 85% of staff felt it was supportive in terms of helping them understand timelines and procedures. 78% of staff felt like it was helpful in terms of the transition process for early access learners. And as far as teaming and team cohesion, 83% felt like it was helpful for them in that regard. So it's been positive
experience for both us as supervisors and learning more about early access and, just seeing teams come together for the child.
And then the last section is program evaluation. So that's our monthly meetings with Angelisa. We go through this section. The one part that I want to call out that have really come about with our service plan meetings with our districts would be number 8. We talk about managed services that the agency offers: technology, school librarian, school business official, those kind of services. But what I'm understanding more, we're asking the question of doing it for next year, but I'm hearing, well, I might need this in 2 years, or I might need this in 3. So I need to go back and we need to start surveying our districts. So we're more prepared for that, because I can have a team of special ed teachers and a team of EL teachers. I could farm them out every day. And then the next big thing, besides the 2 that we offer, SBO and teacher librarian and tech, is that SBO position. When those leave, I at least get 1 or 2 calls a year. Hey, our SBO is leaving tomorrow, next month. Can you help us? So definitely a need there, but we need to make sure I understand, not next year what you need, but if you can do some, help us with some planning of, do you anticipate 2 years it's going to happen? 3 years after that? I know it's too much of a guess, but that will be our next step of not just next year, but surveying our districts of anticipated needs moving forward. Any questions on our required actions before we talk about the recommended?
Questions for Dan or Chris or Angelisa? Go ahead, Dan.
So on the recommended actions, at first, when this came out, like, holy cow, when are we going to get to these? But I've been pleasantly surprised that we've been able to incorporate this work with our others. So a lot of these, I thought we would have to wait right now. We just have the first one up there saying we're going to wait till next year, but actually that's going to change. We're already starting this month on the school and community planning document. Ironically, that kind of goes in with some of the things that we're presenting as far as a service for the agency already. So that just works very well into our service plan meetings. So we will continue working on that, putting some service plan outlines together when a district needs that service. So we have a rough draft. We'll continue finalizing that and presenting that to our districts as an option. Chris, you want to talk about PDU and TAB?
Yeah, we're working on a comprehensive plan for what onboarding new staff or new trainers in specific packages looks like. And so SDI would be an example of one of those packages. I know we're partnering with the state on training up coaches, doing that sort of thing. The state will be providing the actual professional learning, but we'll be the coaching staff. And so, Tabitha, do you want to speak a little bit to that as well?
I think I would
generally
say, yep, we are building implementation support for pretty much anything that our schools want. We've been learning more about implementation science and as a statewide team. And I think we're feeling really comfortable with being able to support that long-term impact.
If you want to jump down to the next, yeah, would you tab? Thank you.
So the next recommended action was more about supporting school with curriculum adoption. That is something that we have done in the past, but I know statewide we've tightened things up. We have a state-approved professional development package for curriculum adoption. So that we feel really confident in. We would say that's completed. Increasing communication to districts about 504 and TAG planning. We offer 504 support for any district that needs it. TAG, we offer a network statewide for TAG teachers. We also offered a professional learning for TAG. Unfortunately, we did not have any registrants. So it's, I think, continuing to get that word out and identifying how we can support TAG teachers to support their students. So continuing to work on that.
The next item is around technology and assistive technology specifically. We each year and ongoing, we have a process that we review the way that you evaluate for assistive technology. Good grief, why can't I think of the acronym? Anyway, so we review that with all of the departments and the early access providers. So we've done that. And this is another one of those that's a continuous and ongoing thing. We've done it, but we continue to do it because it's an area of need. And as technology becomes more and more accessible to kids of all ages, it's important that we consider how that fits with students with disabilities and helps them with their communication and their other areas that they need support in.
For learning environment, I would say both of these things are areas that we are currently building capacity in. Our SEBH consultants are learning about the new packages that were approved for professional learning, as well as kind of onboarding. We've had some requests from some districts to onboard or to provide implementation support for a model that they received training from a company around. So we're just learning alongside districts with their models, and that's kind of ongoing building capacity. I don't know that we'll ever be done there because we always want to build capacity.
And recently, Tab, I'm just gonna jump in. We've had requests from our non-publics. They're using a certain program that they want us to assist partnering with them on implementation. They'll go get the PD, but then they want us back in their buildings to help support the implementation of that. So again, we'll be learning right alongside them and then helping support the request.
So for compliance, the first one there around our Part C Early Access Services Plan, that was part of what I spoke about earlier in one of our required actions. And so in terms of evaluation and how we're doing, this next round of data, we met the mark for timely service, for transition planning, for timely notification of transition meeting, but we still were just a little bit below where we needed to be with the timely transition meeting. We had sent the notification, but not had the meeting. So we've been working on that, and staff are doing much better. There was a lot of confusion around parts of the initial training, and we've kind of shored that up in our agency, but then we were on a statewide meeting yesterday, and it's good to hear that, like others, there was some confusion in other agencies around that too. So I think as a state, that is looking much better. Our communication process to staff and districts, again, internally, we have regular updates. We have weekly opportunities for staff to hop on and talk about what's happening in terms of the accreditation process and other things. We have our department meetings and our monthly updates for early access. So we feel like there's several mechanisms for communication in general with staff. So hopefully that will help around compliance and any other updates they need to know. As far as general supervision procedures, we are reviewing data monthly around progress monitoring, overdue plans, timely evaluations, that sort of thing, as well as other odds and ends, just to kind of check on how people are doing and ask what the barriers are. If people aren't able to get something done, how can we assist? So that's been a positive as well.
Okay, Tab, you want to jump down to the next one?
Sure. The special education services for MTSS, one of the things that we've really supported our districts with lately is there's a document that kind of clarifies the AEA and the LEA role with MTSS. And I think it's pretty clear for academic interventions, behavior interventions. I think we're still working on a plan to support those direct service. So speech language pathology, if a student has a speech concern. So I think we're still in collaboration with the LEAs around what that looks like and how to support. Sometimes our staff have maybe done that, and we need to build capacity of the schools to be able to do interventions.
So to piggyback on that, we've done extensive training around that within the last couple of months, again, throughout the year, but we actually hit on it again this month in department meetings about the general ed interventions for related services and other areas of concern in districts. We have 2 webinars coming up for districts to hop on and join that we're going to explain that in detail. And then we're going to provide a recording that they can share with teachers, hopefully just short, but helps explain the importance of looking at the whole child and not looking at each specific domain.
And then we've updated by the right term during our service plan meetings with each district. So the superintendent's there, the principals are there. We've gone through this document too of whose responsibilities. And then also ask the question. So when you think of OTPT, even SLP, and your preschool teachers, your kindergarten teachers, do they have the background to know what those interventions are? mine went when I was superintendent. So we're asking that question, what does your staff need? How can we help so that we make sure that they have the skills? We're going to be there to collaborate, but what skills do they have in order to implement those interventions? So trying to get feedback at the same time or have them provide us feedback of what does their staff need to make this successful for next year. And we hit this document hard. We've had the superintendent meetings, we hit in the fall, we hit again last month. We are each of our district meetings as well as our non-public meetings so that everyone is aware. I don't want to be caught off guard. So again, very receptive from our districts with this, and then also the feedback portion of it.
And the next one, I would say, is one of those completed but ongoing. We've hit this hard as well, thinking about how all the different ways that you can get a referral for a student, whether they're a birth to 3 learner or if they're a student that is maybe not in a school building, as well as, of course, the ones that are in school buildings. I think staff are getting a pretty good handle on how to do that, what the process is. There has been some changes over the last few years in how we're doing that and trying to ensure that consistency across the state, which is exciting as well. And so we're working through the growing pains of that.
And then the management services that goes along with what I've talked about already with surveying what our districts need, not just next year, but for the next couple of years. So those two go very much hand in hand. And then what capacity do we need to build to meet those needs? And then the last one is completed. Yes, we are not going to get rid of our agreement with Northwest to continue our media services. That will stay in place. Questions?
Angelisa, what insight do you have with the process?
We, as Dan said, we meet every week as an admin team and then monthly as a full school improvement team, essentially AEA improvement team. So we definitely have made quite a bit of progress towards all of these activities. I just had a conversation with Dan today about shifting to sustainability, thinking about what the AEA needs to think about to sustain when I'm not there to support them through the process.
Like follow-up questions.
Yeah. So thinking about, as I start to fade out support, are they able to sustain without me being there? Not that I cracked the whip or Dan or anything.
No, you wouldn't very much.
No.
And not only that, but then Chris has decided to retire. So we have a couple different pieces in there to how we will. So again, that gives us opportunity to look at staffing, what we need to make sure that we continue.
And Angelisa, when she does check in with us, it's usually 30 minutes to an hour a week at most. She's holding our hand, but not as tightly as.
Yeah, our full team is a day usually to make progress.
The check-ins.
And then the check-ins. But yes, we're shifting to what do you need to sustain and how do we fade me out of that process now? Because we have made a lot of progress, but.
And I think, modeling the flow of it has been super helpful.
They need to go it without me.
Yeah, I guess that was 2 questions, Angelise, saying, the sustainability, what will that look like? And first off, you have made a lot of progress. And then second part of that is at the end is what will that final report or look like to the board with, will there be data sets or just anecdotal narratives and hearing, or what will that end result look like? And then the sustainability with that.
May I answer the final report piece?
I can speak to part of it too, can't I?
Sure.
So during the accreditation process, we were following the same process we did last year. So there's about 40 artifacts that we need to submit. And in those artifacts, there is all of the data that you might be talking about, as well as anecdotal and narrative information about what's happening in the agency. So that's a first piece. And then when they come out and do their interviews, that's when they glean some more of the scenarios and information from the field. But we'll be providing that data.
So the same way they had a full accreditation visit last year, they'll have that again this year to see, are they actually doing what they're saying they're doing? And then you'll get a full report, and that's like 2-page summary. If you remember that, you'll get that again this year for them. And you will get this exact same progress report, and you'll get a new continuous improvement plan from them that will have all of the needs assessment summary, action plans, all of that summarized from what I've been doing with them.
Thanks.
Maybe a couple related questions. Excuse me. Or Dan or Chris, besides special ed, how well or how intensive do your schools use your services at the AA?
No, that has really come down, but we're offering something different this year. We will see how that meets their needs. We try to create something a little more flexible. We're finding them purchasing a day here and there of consultant services was hit and miss, but we're trying to do something bigger. Like, so what is your bigger project? Here's how many days it is. You can buy this package to help you with. So that's gone over well in the service plan meetings. If needed some flexibility, we'll see if they follow through and actually commit with it. Again, depending on district size makes a difference too. Obviously, we deal with a lot of small rurals, so they lean on us more than a couple of our larger ones.
And Tabitha works with a lot of those services, and maybe you can give us a sense of the amount of services we're selling out to districts. Tab, do you?
We are doing, I would say a majority of our work is doing that implementation support. We're finding that many of our schools have had professional learning, either from a curriculum company or from an external someplace, but they want that ongoing support. And so I think a lot of our support has been that implementation support. We have in a few places, a lot of the Numeracy project, our math training, especially with the new math counts. We've had some schools say, what does this look like? And how can we better implement math MTSS? So that has really, that's been quite a bit this year as well. We have a couple of schools that have purchased, part-time FTE to serve as kind of curriculum support, administrative support. I would say we're doing less of the one-day professional learnings and more of that ongoing support, which I'm really excited about. I mean, we all know that going to a one-day PD is great and might be energizing, but it's, what happens in the classroom that's going to change student engagement and student outcomes. That's really what we want to be a part of. So I'm excited that that's where schools are seeing the need for support. It's just, like Dan said, providing that flexibility in a package to get ongoing support. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you. Related follow-up question for Dan, I guess. With the size of Prairie Lakes, it's a pretty good sized geographic area, but what about the actual student population of your AA compared to other AAs?
So I think the only one smaller than us is Keystone student-wise, but our agency was down 500 students this year, which is a lot for our area. Very large geographical, but number of students, our largest community school district is Fort Dodge with 3,000 students. That's our largest. Very rural, very rural.
There's some obstacles to overcome.
When you're that spread out and finding staff that don't have to drive a long ways to service, yes. And even, yeah.
Just to be able to recruit experts rather than generalists.
Correct.
It's a big challenge. I'm not sure. Back in the day, before AAs consolidated, we were with Area 6 out of Marshalltown. And they did what they could, but it was a small population base and it does create challenges. But you have to be aware of those challenges and
at the same time, schools need us more than ever because they can't get what they need either. So it's kind of a.
So you're kind of codependent.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're trying to really focus on too, John, because we always heard AA stills are good people. Well, how can we partner with your good people? You get them for a little bit and we get them for a little bit versus, they feel like they've lost them because we take them or the AA system has taken them. So we're really emphasized, especially with the number of them that decreasing enrollment, might have to do some budget cuts. I said to all my superintendents, reach out to me first before you do any cutting, see if we can share some people and work together through this.
Just a couple things. Back to the LPS, how many districts are utilizing the LPS? Do you know offhand?
I don't know. I haven't looked at that roster. Let me just see how many were there. I don't know off the top of my head, or there this year. Yeah.
The number of staffing are at the LPS, do you know?
We have 3 teachers and then 2 associates assigned to each teacher if we can fill the associate role.
Yes. And then
And then the lead teacher overseer.
Yeah, I think AAs need to get creative on staffing. I read an article where Nathan Wood, the chief, that
Yep.
he's gonna be the chief, but then superintendent at Sigourney for a couple of days. So maybe with other staffing positions with other districts, maybe that's an alternative as well. So at least thinking out of the box and.
We've had conversations one district about sharing the curriculum director.
Yeah.
Yeah. We need to keep good people around, or we can partner.
Thanks.
Anything else? If not, thank you for your update.
Thank
Thank you.
Keep plugging along.
Yeah.
You will.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's see, item 10 on the agenda is our Teacher of the Year.
Morning, everyone. I'm Stephanie Wager. I am the administrative consultant over standards and practices and also coordinate the Iowa Teacher of the Year program. And I'm going to introduce this up. How are you? Good. This is Stephanie.
I'm
Fritz.
Stephanie Fritz.
Yeah, I am 2026 Teacher of the Year from Sheldon, Iowa. So had a nice little drive this morning. So it's nice to be here. Really nice to see you all. Excited to share my story. We will hear
We
more.
have Stephanie and Stephanie.
You got it. Stephanie with an F, Stephanie with a PH. Yes.
And I've met a lot of Stephanies. I've never seen so many Stephanies.
We have 5
in a building.
here.
That's awesome.
All right.
Which one is phonetically correct?
Before we hear from this Stephanie, I'm just going to give a little bit of background about the program. The Iowa Teacher of the Year program was established in 1958. I think we have one of the longest programs in the country, of course, sponsored by the department, but with an appropriation from the legislature. Really quickly talking about the selection process. In Iowa, we allow anyone to nominate a Teacher of the Year. Other than self-nominations or family members, we really have a wide variety of folks that can nominate. And so we encourage all of those categories of folks to nominate outstanding teachers that they know. The overall selection process is pretty multifaceted. First, we take nominations from those folks, and then of the folks that get nominated, we then reach out to them and ask them to submit a more complete nomination or application, excuse me. Then we put together internal and external, a team that is comprised of internal and external partners to score those applications and interview the top 2 candidates from each educational region. Then those awardees come to the department, actually in this room, and are interviewed by another team that is comprised of internal and external partners. And that from that group, an Iowa Teacher of the Year is selected. As you know, I think we a few years ago switched to this regional process. So we have a regional teacher from every education region in the state. We honor those folks a couple times a year, both at our Outstanding Iowa Teachers of the Year luncheon and also at our Emerging Educators Academy. The timeline for this year is up on the screen, so I won't read all of that to you, but I think the important thing to note is that nominations are still open until February 27th. So we would encourage anyone who knows of an outstanding teacher in their life to submit a nomination form. And then later throughout the spring, we will be having that more complete process where we look at, we ask to complete a full application and score those and do the regional nomination interviews. And then later in the summer, those 9 awardees will come to the department for the full interview. Before I introduce Stephanie, I want to take just a minute to make sure that we also give recognition to the 9 regional awardees from this year. So from Central Rivers, Allison Parjian, a math and computer science teacher from Montezuma. From Grant Wood, Marissa Moore, a language arts teacher from Clear Creek Amana. From Great Prairie, Tony Onesto, an art teacher at Burlington. From Green Hills, Kelly Myers, who was a K-8 math and science teacher at Murray Community. From Heartland, Gregory Barode, a marine biology teacher at Des Moines Public Schools. From Keystone, Jen Reese, a Spanish teacher at Maquoketa Valley. From Mississippi Bend, Don Rangans, a science teacher at North Scott. And from Prairie Lakes, Christy Mentick from Harris Lake Park, a kindergarten teacher. So I'm now going to turn it over to Stephanie, and she is just going to share a little bit about herself and what the next year looks like for her.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I'm not kidding. Oh, man. All right. Let's see. Hi. Thank you for having me and leaving a little bit of time for me to kind of tell a little bit about myself and why I chose to become an educator, and I continue to remain an educator, and my passions for it and my plans for the upcoming year. It's just been really exciting so far. And I tell anybody, if you want to fill your bucket, you need to nominate somebody to be Teacher of the Year, because your bucket gets filled and overflown with just a lot of greatness from everybody. So far I've have people reach out to me from many years in my past from when I first started. So it's been very fun so far. So just a little bit about me. Yes, I was born in Sheldon, Iowa, so very northwest corner of Iowa. I've been an educator for 23 years. Several of those years I taught first and third grade. So a lot of those foundational years, a lot of literacy. I'm a literacy person. I love it. And then for the last 10 years, I've actually been served as a K-12 instructional coach for Sheldon Community School District. In this role, I really like that I can work alongside our teachers and our admin and even our students. Like I like that I have that opportunity. I see our district from a bird's eye view, which has been really cool, because I know when we started this TLC program, schools could choose how they wanted to run it. And we were trying to decide, what's the best? Do we want to keep you specialized in elementary, or do we want you as a K-12? And I'm telling you, I've been so happy that I moved to a K-12, because I hit all content areas. And honestly, with my literacy background, it really hits all areas beautifully. And I've had to get a little bit more buy-in from my secondary people, but I love that challenge. And I've gotten buy-in from them, and we're just doing amazing things at my school district that I want to be able to share and support other school districts with as well. I do a lot with high quality instruction. I'm big on implementing research-based strategies. And I love data. I analyze data, and I use that data to help guide the next steps we're going to make, or the decisions we're going to make. And I do this at individual student levels. I do this at a systemic level as well. So all of those things, I think, contribute to that learning and that strengthening of being an educator. I'm very passionate about supporting our educators. So I just appreciate that I have this opportunity to do this. So not only I'm hoping to impact our school district, but I'm ready. Like, I'm excited for this work. So been doing it for a long time now. Go Orbs. Yes. You got to explain that. Okay, so we don't have a mascot necessarily. So Orbs stands for orange and black. So it's our school colors. So yes, we're very unique. Okay.
Was that like a decision not to have the school mascot?
They actually had, they voted on what they were going to do, and that's what they came up with.
Really?
Yes, was the Orbs, orange and black. So yeah, and it's here we are today. So I just want to talk to you guys a little bit about why like I said, I became an educator, and I continue to be an educator. You know, when I was young, I loved
bringing home old curriculum from my teachers, and I loved lining up my stuffed animals and teaching to them. That was like, it was like already in my blood back then. So, and to this day, I never look back. I'm like, this is totally what I was meant to do and who I'm supposed to be. So I'm just very passionate about it. But one of the things that keeps me going in education is teachers and staff collaboration. I really value the power of working alongside our educators. Becoming an educator really helped me to lead and grow within a team. And it's not just, I go back and I reflect when I first became an educator, I was kind of on my own sole little island. And I do think through the opportunities the state has provided with our TLC program, our teacher leadership program, it has been monumental for us. And I do really attribute a lot of our success to that, because now you're not on a sole island. Now you have somebody right next to you that can support and walk alongside you and can feel those feelings with you and help reflect and walk you through, now how do we get through this? So I love that piece, and I love doing that with our teachers and our staff. It's not an easy feat. Teachers are probably the hardest to teach, but it really stems from building those relationships and gaining that trust in your teachers. So you'll see on my slides here, one of the many things I do, I'm a big believer in building climate and culture and morale in your building. So we always have a kickoff at the beginning of the year where we just get everybody back together after the summer, reconnect, meet our new people, and just have fun and learn about each other and just prepare for the new year coming. So that's just one little piece out of the many that I like to lead for our school district. And that's why I like to teacher and staff collaboration. Big key on why I do what I do. The next piece on my why is it's definitely student-centered purpose. I became an educator because I know it impacts lives of students positively, and it does it academically, it does it socially and emotionally. My desire to support their growth and meet their needs is truly my driving force. Like I said earlier, when I had this recognition come out, I had a lot of my previous students reach out to me, and it was so fun to hear the impact that you make as an educator and how even many of them went into teaching because of it. How cool is that? And I want to be able to do that for others, not just in my neck of the woods. So I think that's so neat. I'm just very passionate about making a real difference in their lives. And it's so important, again, to build those relationships and build that trust. And then once you have that, it just grows and it shines. So, and the kids will eat out of your hands. They're amazing. So you really have to establish that. My next why is I do have a passion for literacy and instruction. I've actually found a love for literacy even more. I taught in those foundational years, but even in this role, I have learned so much. And I am so grateful to the state of Iowa for allowing us this Lexia Letters training. I actually am just about done, 2 years. I have one more class next week and then I'm done. But it's been so rewarding because it's not just me. I had a whole group of teachers and they didn't have to do it, but they wanted to do it because they know it makes a difference. And they know when we do it together, we have a lot of fun together, we do a lot of learning together, and we do a lot of growth together. So it's been a very rewarding 2 years for us. And there's things that we've taken away from it, but there's a lot of affirmations that have come from it. Because when you're in that training, you're like, we do that. That's so awesome. So we're on the right track. So it's in education, you need a lot of affirmations to keep you going. So I've appreciated that and I love learning. So that has helped a ton. I also am huge on data. So I like to incorporate these evidence-based practices and then see what it does for our data. It's fun. On the screen, I have a couple of our results. So like when I first started, our elementary school was a targeted school, and it's been over 10 years ago. And I started looking at our data, and you have to start digging deep. Where is this starting? Is this in our tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3? So we made some shifts in our tier one at our elementary building, and the results speak for themselves because we trained our teachers, we supported them, we guided them, we walked alongside them, and we praised and celebrated with them and our students. So the results definitely speak for themselves. And not only did we do that at our elementary building, then I worked with our middle school building and our high school building. And these teachers are like, but Steph, we never were trained with these foundational reading skills. And I said, I know, but it makes a difference. We still, unfortunately, have kids that are coming up to you that still need some of that. And so we implemented changes and changed different variables. And then we have our data. So it's just nice to be able to support and say, hey, you guys did this. Look at what you did. And look at the results we got from it. And now, like, my middle school teachers are like, what's next? Let's do this. Like, they're so excited to continue to learn and grow for our students. So that part's been a lot of fun. I have a lot of commitment to those practices, those evidence-based practices and literacy because of it. Another reason why I continue my education journey is I do value relationships. They're huge to me. I love human connections. I love people. I love people all ages. I like the challenge of people. I like to be able to figure out what makes them tick. What can I do to learn more about you so that I can help you grow? Because everybody's so different. And you see that, especially in my role. I work with a lot of different people. So I need to figure out different ways to work with them, to listen. I have to have a lot of empathy in my role. But then now how can we turn that to be solution based? So I love the challenge of working with people and making that, because I know once I lift them up, it lifts up our students as well. So it moves down. So that's a big goal of mine. And this is one of my bestie teacher friends, and she was so excited that I put her on the slide. But so I love the human connection piece. And it's even just more than teaching the content. It's about that warmth, that trust, that building that community. It's just, that's where it starts. My next why is being in education is just so inspirational, and you really have to have a growth mindset. And I do think over the last 10 years, I've continued to develop that and to instill that in my educators that I work with, that we have to have that growth mindset. We can't be stuck. But because I do feel like education is a platform where not only we can be inspired, but we can inspire others. So I think that's truly important. These pictures are a true testament to that. Like I said, our elementary building was a targeted school over 10 years ago. And the last couple of years, we are a blue ribbon school, and now we're exceptional because we put in systemic changes and we added that support, and we walk alongside our teachers. We keep them at our forefront and our students, and we keep giving that mindset change, and we keep building them up. So I feel like that has attributed a lot to our success. It's very inspirational. And so, yeah, we had a chance to go out to Washington, D.C., and it was just very rewarding. Our teachers work really, really hard. So, and it shows. So that's been a fun piece for us. So just looking at the year ahead as 2026 Teacher of the Year, my goal is to use this opportunity to elevate the work that is happening in our classrooms every single day and to support educators as much as I can. I do want to continue promoting the use of high quality materials. Like I said, that is really what shifted us and made a huge impact, was using those high quality materials, even using research-based practices. From the beginning, when I started working with our teachers, we didn't know any different. We're like, oh, I just kind of created this or this. But now I give them some guidelines, and now they're using those guidelines, those practices, and they're like, oh, now we're seeing some change. So I appreciate what has come down from the state level, because we are proof that it works. I didn't come up with this myself. I don't know everything. I go to all of you, and I go to all the people in this building, and I go to our AEAs, and that's what I've learned. And I take that back and that's what I instill in our district. And we've grown because of it. So thank you. It's because of people in this building. It's not just me. So thank you. I'd like to keep focusing on that, and I want to continue. Let's see. Yes, the systemic work. Oh, that's huge. So MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support, because not only I found are things happening at tier 1, but we have tier 2, we have tier 3. I've worked with all levels. And like I said, we just have to use our data to help hone in which area do we need to focus on? What changes do we need to make? And let's make them. Let's just try it. And if it doesn't work for us, let's go back to the drawing board. It's okay. Let's figure out, let's tweak this. So I love that systemic work and getting those structures in place for a whole system. And another priority for me is advocating for data-informed decision-making. It is so important. And I think I like the black and white of it because I did this and it tells me this. So I'm like, okay, I feel good about that. So it's very powerful. It's a powerful tool to help us reflect and to continue to grow. And I use it with my teachers. I meet with them every 6 weeks and let's sit down. Let's look at our data. What is it telling us? Okay, we're doing good things here. That means we got to keep going. We're seeing a little dip here. How are we going to adjust? What are we going to change? So I would like to continue because that's a huge part of what drives our research-based and our high-quality instruction. And then finally, I do want to, my goal would be to uplift the profession itself. Teaching's hard. It is challenging. And every day I meet with teachers and I hear this from them, but our teachers are so critical of themselves. They need to hear the good that they're doing because they don't see it all the time. And then I like to share that good and say, and look what you've done. I have a lot of teachers that say, we just need to come and sit in your office because we just need somebody to because they forget, because you kind of get stuck in the mud sometimes. So I just want to continue to uplift our teachers and our profession all the way from new teachers to our veteran teachers. I have more, when I began this journey as a coach, I had more new teachers, and now I have even more veteran teachers that reach out. And I didn't think that was ever going to be a possibility, but they really thrive on having those conversations and being lifted. Everybody does. We all deserve that because we all do, and our intentions are all good to help kids. So I like to be able to share that, and I want to be able to impact all of our teachers, as many as I can, and just motivate them. So this year I hope to serve as a connector between districts in the state of Iowa. I want to be an advocate for our teachers, for our students, even for our admin. I work a lot with our admin too. I have amazing admin I work with. It's that trust. And I have to build it at every level so we can continue to grow and maintain and just be reflective of ourselves. And I just want this work to be a reminder of why it matters so deeply. That's my plan.
Sounds like a good plan.
Thank you.
Now,
We got this.
follow-up question.
How you can do it?
Being in Northwest Iowa.
Yeah.
Question for you is what is her travel budget?
We padded it a bit. Yeah.
Yes.
You're going to have to give her the resources to.
Yes. We have worked through some of that and we want to make sure that no matter where our teacher of the year is from, of course, that we support them. And her district has been, did they give you the car yet? Or is it?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
I think there's a district car.
Yeah.
They're letting
my husband's a transportation director too, so that's it is newer.
Yeah. So the district is being very supportive as well. And but you are not wrong that the travel schedule, can be pretty robust, and we're talking through all of those plans right now. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Stephanie, I just want to take a minute and celebrate you.
Yeah,
I think your goals for the year ahead are fantastic, and I can just feel your passion and enthusiasm. I think it's well timed, and good luck.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited. I'm so excited. I'm like ready for this. Let's do this.
Stephanie, I would have loved to have been in your classroom as a student, your passion, and
yes,
especially after 20-some years and you still have that passion.
Yeah.
You're working with veteran teachers.
Yep.
I commend you. I'm from Okoboji, so.
Nice.
Retired super, so Corey Meyer, yeah.
Oh, yes. I love it.
Well, he was my middle school counselor, so tell him.
Yeah, I will.
At Manson Northwest Webster.
How cool.
I've known Corey for over 20 years.
He's amazing.
Yeah, and.
He's so supportive.
To have you and.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations.
I won't tell him.
Definitely have the passion, so
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
it's exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah. Congratulations. I was on the interview panel. So
Yeah, I remember.
yeah. I just remember your energy and I was like, that is amazing. So congratulations. I think you will be amazing at this.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Congratulations. Something you said early on in your speech convinced me that we collectively made the right decision.
Great.
One of the questions I would always ask when I was interviewing teachers, especially elementary teachers, is that when did you think you wanted to become a teacher?
Oh. Well,
you.
yes.
Because
Yes.
what I found out through research and other things is that the people that decide very early in life, that's what they want to do, typically are the best teachers.
Yep. That's awesome. And I even say, even when people ask me, who's your favorite teacher? Like who, and I'm like, I can't pick. I honestly, I loved every teacher I had. I can't say I had one bad teacher. So but there again, I love relationships with people. So I think it started from when I was young and it's just a really beneficial tool now in what I do. So it's huge. So yeah, love it.
Yeah,
People don't care what you know, they just have to know that you care. right?
Yep, 100%.
I think it's so important that, what you mentioned, you're just trying to find what it is about that person that makes them tick.
Yes.
Not a lot of people take the time to do that.
No.
And that's, I think, essential in human relationships. Right?
Even our students, because even in my role, I don't have a classroom anymore. And I could choose, I just to work with teachers, but I like to get in with the students still. You learn so much from kids if you just give them a little time and you talk to them and you ask the right questions and then they guide you and then you can go to the teacher and now we can guide them. And it's just a beautiful relationship that we can have. So I just think it's so important. Like I said, at every level, even at our admin level, we purposely meet with our admin monthly, and then almost with individual principals and as an admin team. So we're very intentional about that. And they're always like, how do you know all this stuff? Like, it's like, as I get in there, I have the time and I make it a priority to make sure I'm talking to people and building relationships and working through those things. So yeah, so it's been very, very helpful.
Absolutely. I think a lot of times the student maybe voice is overlooked or not even. And Grace, you could probably talk to that, our student member. I think a lot of times it's like we're making decisions for the kids, but not actually asking the kids what's best for them.
Yes. So true. So true.
Yeah.
Hi, are you high school?
Yeah, I'm a senior. I'm gonna graduate in May. So yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, I'm going. No. I was thinking about it.
Change you.
But I do want to, off of what you're saying, I mean, you're very passionate and I think that's something that I want to carry into my career. I think that's something everybody here can attest to, as long as you're passionate about something, I think that's great.
Yeah.
And you can do great in anything if you're passionate about it. And in my field, I mean, I want to be a speaker. I want to inspire people. I want to meet new people. I want to do everything that you're doing just in a different setting.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that not only me, but also everybody around and everybody that listens just to be inspired by. So I just think that's awesome.
I think you're already winning at it. Yeah, awesome. Good. That's awesome. Love that. Very good.
And you can see Stephanie in action in the intro video that's on the TV out there. So if you haven't had a chance to see that intro video.
That's been the hardest part is to watch myself. I'm like,
it's really a good intro to her in action. Yeah, awesome. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
See, this is why we. We normally hang
I thought
around for
about
lunch.
catering.
That should have been the reason, even though our meeting didn't go long.
Okay, we have a school budget review committee that met in January.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, President Robbins and Director Snow, for having me here today. I am here to provide a summary of action from the January 27, 2026 SBRC hearing. This was a regularly scheduled hearing, and then we also went into a continuation of a work session from October. The committee began with a couple of informational items. Both informational items were actually inspired from the December SBRC hearing, where the committee members actually requested additional information and work from the department and a report on that work. So the first piece of the informational item was regarding the special education historical population that we provided for 10 years, including the percent of population as it relates to the general education or the total population. We also provided then the expenditure review that we did. They asked us to look at those who had the highest increasing MSA request. So again, that MSA is the modified supplemental amount, or AKA spending authority. So those who had a deficit special education balance, who had spent more to support the special education program than the revenues that they had received in that year. And then those with the highest program expenditures overall. So we did look into those expenditures. There were some costs that we just weren't sure about, that we weren't able to say, yes, this is absolutely for sure based on the information that we have. And so we're preparing now for additional emails to go back to those districts to ask for more information regarding some of the questioned costs. And just a couple of examples of those would be transportation costs, such as vehicle maintenance and repair parts, classroom supplies, such as bookcases, carpet, and furniture, curriculum costs, such as math and science curriculum that really could be attributable to the entire class, not just special education students, technology, such as iPhone chargers and iPads and hotspots, purchase services such as interpreters, and then capital costs such as building improvements and a John Deere wheel loader. So we will provide an update to the SBRC after we continue reviewing those questioned costs. We also provided an update on the fiscal monitoring practices that the department is working on. So in addition to reviewing actual special education costs, we would take any district who actually miscoded anything to the program. Those will come back to the SBRC related to a negative MSA request. So if they had asked for additional spending authority based on those inappropriately coded costs, we will make that right. We did have a district actually appear, as you know, in December to do such a thing. We also talked about the fiscal monitoring plan that includes looking at all districts every 5 years. And then, of course, each year we could have a district be reviewed based on either a high special education deficit balance, a high MSA request related to that deficit balance, or a high risk assessment score. In addition to some of these practices regarding our fiscal monitoring duties, we also, as part of this larger work and framework, have launched an IDEA Part B application process. So this is a brand new application on the Ed portal. We actually just on Tuesday this week had a statewide webinar to roll it out to superintendents and SBOs and walk them through what that budget process looks like. Once they've completed that budget process, we will also collect the claims through this same application. And so we're hoping that will streamline things on their end. This is replacing a paper copy of the IDEA Part B budget. And so we're bringing it into current times. So we're pretty excited about that. We'll also be adding an AEA component yet this year. The second,
Sorry to interrupt you. Just to connect the dots again, we talked about this earlier on in our department report, but this is again a department identified need that was affirmed by the U.S. Department of Education's OSEP report, both the monitoring protocol that Dr. Klein just covered, as well as the new application. that Bureau Chief Klein covered.
Thank you so much, Director. Thank you. The second committee informational item was related to a request for additional spending authority related to excess costs of providing the EL program or the English Learner Program. So as you know, state aid provides 5 years of categorical funding to support that particular program. If a district incurs costs beyond available resources, whether they're state resources, federal resources, or other resources, there is an opportunity for them to request that additional spending authority. The SBRC wanted us to take a look at those expenditures as well. And so we did that. We looked at districts with the highest request for spending authority related to those excess costs, and then the districts with just the largest amount of expenditures in those program areas. As part of that, those districts did report narratives explaining the reason for such either increased costs or just high program costs. Some of those, most of them are attributable to some type of population change, whether it is a number of those students in EL programs beyond the state aid formula funded 5 years. We actually had one district who specifically said that they just added a packing plant. And so that has brought in a lot of workers whose children would be in the EL program. And there's also one specific district also said that they just have a new settlement that has just grown an immigrant community very large over the past years. As part of the review of those allowable expenditures, that actually leads us into item number 2 at the committee. Linn-Mark Community School District, as part of this process to review those English learner excess costs, identified that they had actually miscoded $162,000 to the program. And so they did make a request for additional spending authority in December, and it was granted. So now item number 2 in January was a negative MSA award equal to the amount of the overcoding. And then item 3 was also an action item. So each year the SBRC looks at AEA special education balances to ensure that none of those balances exceed 10%. If they do exceed 10%, the SBRC can direct the Department of Management to revert those funds. In this case, none of them exceeded 10%, so no reversions were recommended. The committee then went into work session. The committee has continued for the last year conversations regarding a spending authority threshold. And as part of that, they have worked to really build that capacity and understanding around what is spending authority in the context of the local district. We can look at statewide metrics, and right now the statewide unspent balance is $2.1 billion after the MSA awards in December. And so putting some ideas around that, like what does that mean at a local district? And unsurprisingly, it means different things for different districts, considering the different demographics, the different types of costs, the different types of revenues. There just really are a lot of differences. So one of the things that this work session particularly focused on was looking at, okay, what other types of strategic efforts could the SBRC make to bring more purposefulness behind any spending authority awards that they make or spending authority requests or other fiscal management that local districts might have. So I have 6 to share with you. There's one that was set by itself because it's a calculation interpretation. And then there were 5 what we termed discussion statements. So there weren't necessarily recommendations by the department, but there were items for discussion. So the first one, so if you recall, back at the December SBRC hearing, they did award MSA, so the spending authority, for what is a student who is open enrolled out this year. However, that student was not included in that same district's certified enrollment in the prior year. So if student A were to move into a district, over the summer and then open enroll out to another district, the district into which they moved would be required to pay that open enrollment tuition. However, that district would not have received funding specific to that student if they weren't included in a prior year headcount.
So every year we have a calculation that determines the amount of that request that a district can make. Historically, we have taken out any increase that the district sees in enrollment. So if the district had 100 students last year, they have 105 students this year, there's a separate MSA request for that, so they wouldn't get it for 5 students. But if they had anything beyond 5 students who had moved in and then open and rolled out, that amount would be allowable. So as inspired by the conversation surrounding spending authority, there was the thought of an alternate calculation. This alternate calculation would actually take into consideration any decrease in enrollment. So if a district in the prior year had 100 students, and then this year they had 95 students, they're still funded for the whole 100 students this year, right? So in our current calculation, if they also had 5 eligible students for this open enrollment calculation, they would still get that open enrollment MSA for those 5 students. In the alternate calculation, we would say, no, you were funded for 5 students that you're now not serving. So we would take into consideration that decrease. The difference in this calculation, just based on this past December, would have taken the $56.8 million request and would have decreased it to $16.8 million. So fully over $30 million request just by changing this calculation. So that was one of the ideas. That one and the next one, I'll go into the most detail, and then I will just briefly cover the last 4 of you. Yes.
To make a change in that type of calculation, how does that come into? We'll just do it.
It's a decision of the SBRC.
Okay.
The opportunity to make the request is statutory, but how that calculation is made, we believe that they have I've talked to Thomas about this too, which is why I looked at him, but we believe that they have the statutory authority to interpret how that calculation is made. And we also don't believe that the intent of the legislature was to double fund any of the students either. So, but historically, that's just the way that the calculation has been done. And so we never thought twice to say, could it be something else? And so that's kind of what these thought exercises are about, is to just see what other things could be.
Would that be money that they would have to return, or they just, or how would that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we wouldn't change it for this year since it's already been awarded and, budgets are out there. They're doing them now. So we wouldn't necessarily change anything for this year. However, for this coming December, that would be based on fall 25 to fall 26. If a change were made, we would make it for this upcoming fiscal year. Yep, good question. Or beyond, if they so chose to give it a year, hey, this is what we're going to do starting in 27. They could make that determination also. Good question. The second item is actually the 5 discussion statements. So we will, like I said, I will go into the first one with a little bit more detail, and then I'll high level the last 4. So the first one of these discussion statements. So these are discussion statements that were presented to the SBRC, from which then they took up the conversation to say, what could this look like to us? What could this look like to the field? What would the implementation look like? And such. So the first one would be require a demonstration of need and documentation of board purposefulness for unspent authority balances and any additional requests. So one of the things that we already do is if there is a request for MSA that comes to the SBRC, we ask them for the board's policy or philosophy on spending authority. What we have found over the past few years since we've begun this practice, excuse me, is that some boards are very specific. They have a clear target range, and they say this is where we intend to be. Some districts, including those with ranges and including those without ranges, also have a statement that says, and this is cultural, right? If there's an opportunity to get spending authority, request it. And without regard to that range, it's just a statement outside of that says, if there's an opportunity to request it, do so. And then there are districts who don't have a policy nor a written philosophy. There are some that just I've heard a superintendent say, well, I know what the board wants me to do, and they've told me. So it's the gamut from a documented target to a verbal understanding. So when they come to the SBRC, though, that's more difficult for me to make a judgment of a measurement. Where are they now in relation to the board's target with their UAB balance? Where would they be if this request were granted? And so we've started providing those comparisons, and we say this would keep them within their target. This would allow them to exceed their target. We just make it's a simple math comparison, within range, higher than, less than. That's it. There's no judgment beyond that. It's just a comparison. However, without a target, without a documented number to compare against, all we can say in our department's analysis is that we're unable to make the analysis. And so the idea behind this is that a board would set a target. The SBRC is not suggesting the target. The SBRC is suggesting, or the idea of this anyway, would be that a board is purposeful for their context, which allows that local control to remain, but also requires that purposefulness. And then with any request for MSA, that can be compared against, if this were granted, is that demonstration of need there. That demonstration of need is the question that they've been trying to answer since I've started working with the SBRC 10 years ago. And by then it was already an old question. And so we've worked for that over that 10 years to continue to provide context around what would that look like. But our context that we can provide at a state level really is based on comparison numbers. The idea, though, that local context is important is still recognized, which is why they haven't yet taken up any statewide numbers.
Why do some have it and some don't? Do those local boards not understand that that's needed or think that that's important or think that they need one?
I don't know about their thoughts, but what I'll say is it's not required. It's not statutorily required. And I think as many different board members and board makeups as there are across the state or philosophies on how districts should be managed. And so some of them take up, for example, there's policy primers out there and they have those metrics, target, even suggested targets in there. Some will adopt some of those policy primers, very closely verbatim, and so much so that they don't even change the district name in some of them. And then others will just, make their own to what they think. And there's everything in between.
Could the SBRC just say, make a requirement that districts have to have a range?
That is exactly what this discussion statement was about, is that if they have that range, then what, right? And that would allow us to make that comparison.
So I was in school district A and our range was, let's say, maybe ridiculously high, but it's our range. And what would the SBRC look at in that situation?
Can I put that in the parking lot until I get to item number 4?
Sure.
3?
I wanted to
Okay.
piggyback on that. Because what I was saying, the SBRC make a requirement for all districts, and then when you get all that information, could the SBRC then make an average of all the range? Because like John said, they're all over the map.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in District A early in my career, it was 10 to 15%. The last district I left, the board's like, no, we're going to go 15 to 25%.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, there's some districts that just don't have it. So if there's a way to require it and then make it a state average based on that, I don't know. Because it's all over the map.
It is. And one of the things, and I appreciate the comments, one of the things that the SBRC has been trying to do to help inform this conversation is specifically hear from districts on why they are beyond. So we had set a 30% just arbitrary threshold to say, okay, if the SBRC wants to hear from districts, we're going to set a threshold. We're going to bring in districts above that. We're going to bring in districts below that. So in October, we had 4 districts come in, 2 that were above and 2 that were below, and they were on the larger size. And specifically from that, the SBRC asked to hear from some smaller districts. And so we had 3 smaller districts then come in January and presented to the SBRC. Just those 7 districts right there tells the story of why the variances exist in some of those, the purposefulness behind why they need to exist. For example, one of our smaller districts said without having this kind of jump in their UAB due to a reorganization, they wouldn't have been able to sustain through what they're going to see now as continued enrollment drops. So, and then we have larger districts that are preparing for continued enrollment growth, other larger districts that are trying to manage, enrollment declines. There's changing economies, and there's so many differences for all of the districts that, and then you have the spending authority balance versus the actual a dollar amount behind that, or even cash behind that, which is something else. But is it a 20%, or for some districts, is it a certain amount of money, or amount of spending authority, I should say? And there are policies, district policies, that have also a specific amount and not necessarily related back to spending authority. And so that's what they need to be able to explain to their district. This is to hold us to be able to pay for 10 teachers, or to be able to pay for whatever it is that within that explanation. So this is kind of the complexity of the challenge ahead of the SBRC is trying to put all of this.
But the state will restrict districts with cash reserve levies too, though.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a control on the situation.
Yeah.
It is.
What, 20%?
20. Mm-hmm. So then the last four, and I'll just kind of high level on these. So one is an accounting thing that we could communicate to districts. So right now, for a special education deficit balance calculation, we only look at the revenues that they have received and the expenditures that they are coding against the special education program. We don't, in Iowa, we don't make those special education students and general education student dollars vie against one of each other, right? And that's really important to Iowa. However, for those that do have a balance in the general ed side that they would like to attribute to the special ed program so as to decrease their MSA request later, we would give them an accounting opportunity to do that. Number 3 goes back to what about those districts with the high balances? So one of the things that we've talked about is to have some sort of scaled down model. So we would, and this could start with some type of conversation. This could start with some type of, let's just say we're starting at 50%. So for 1 year, anybody above 50%, either explain to the SBRC why you need to be above 50%, or just request negative MSA to get down to 50%. And then the next year, or some other step down process, you could go to 45%, you could go to 40%. So just giving you some of those numbers. So for example, there in fiscal year 25, there were 6 that exceeded 50%. So, and then 40%, there are 25, and then 35%, there's 51. So, the thing that I think is important is that there's not a starting next year, everybody must be at this. There's an opportunity if they did want to set some sort of like step down or threshold, that there's an opportunity for them to get there eventually so that they could have wherever they need to get, it's purposeful. And it's not a spend down for no reason other than to spend it down, but that they're given an opportunity to do it purposefully over time. And that's what that would allow is let's see what the next 5 years look like. And then we'll step down over the next 5 years.
So those districts you identified at the 50% level, 45 and 40, was there any common denominator as far as size of school district, or is it a scattergram?
I would say for the 6, if I recall, and I can get this information too, for the 6, they were smaller. Once we start scaling down further, then you get some medium-sized districts in there. I don't recall off the top of my head any of our larger districts.
You don't need to get
high, but yeah.
That's fine.
So with that said, trying to keep my comments, but with that said, what John said, what I'm thinking is, as the SBRC during these discussions say, hey, X districts with this enrollment, here's your range. Because I don't get a smaller district being at 40%, But, when you have 500 students, there's some of them out there, so I didn't know if you could tier it based on districts. I don't know. I'm just trying to throw something out there.
Yeah, they've definitely talked about that also. And we've been looking at district size ranges. We've done some, it's been a couple of years, we did some regression analysis just trying to find any factor that would, we could draw some sort of correlation to something, and we just couldn't. And so when we really get into like the why, the narrative of the why, the history of the economy, or the changes in tax rates, or the changes in local levies, or the changes in just board decisions, so much of that just drives it that I can't just unfortunately run something on my spreadsheet and figure it out. That's easy for me, but it really does come down to that local level.
You have to put everything in context.
Yeah, because legislators, all they see is that 2.1 billion. And that's it. And, what's the narrative behind that? And how can we scale that down so we can explain it to them? Because I don't think most of them understand it to begin with, but that's all they see. They just see that number. So I appreciate your work you're doing on this, because, legislators don't get it.
Thank you. It's good conversation, and I think the in context is the most important piece of the title of what we've been calling these continued conversations. It's the spending authority in context, and that emphasis is on that in context that we've been trying to working to build. So thank you.
Appreciate
it. So fourth, then, this one is regarding the use of TSS, or teacher salary supplement monies. So as you know, teacher salary minimums have risen statutorily over the past 2 years to its new statutory minimum. So over that time, we would have expected TSS expenditures in special education and in the EL program to rise. What we have found, though, is that some districts are exercising their statutory authority for themselves to leverage those funds for other uses. What happens when you don't use teacher salary monies to pay for special education costs is that increases your special education deficit dollar by dollar. Additionally, if you're not using TSS to pay for EL program costs, that could result in an excess cost request, which is also a modified supplemental amount, dollar for dollar. So what we found is that the number of districts that are not using TSS for special education costs, there were 0 in fiscal year 23. Everybody was using some type of TSS. There were 6 in fiscal year 24 that moved away from using any TSS to pay for special education costs. And there were 20 in fiscal year 25. And 5 of those 20, though, did not make a request for MSA, but 15 of those did. So reasonably, they had the TSS money that potentially would have decreased that deficit had they used it for that purpose, but they elected to use that in other programs. Similarly, for EL, the difference went from, 50 in fiscal year 23 that they weren't using any TSS. And that could be because they have local sources and they have federal sources, to 125 in fiscal year 25 they didn't use. But one of the things that was discussed was requiring the use of TSS to pay for special education and EL teacher costs at a same rate that they're using TSS to pay teachers in other programs, if they were making requests to the SBRC.
Oh, yeah. I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
The last one has to do with the categorical balances, the state-funded categorical balances. So this would be your special education support services, your early intervention childhood, professional development, homeschool assistance, statewide voluntary preschool program. So the idea is that at the end of each year, all of those balances, I'll set special education support services aside for a second. The rest of them, though, are all eligible for the flexibility account. So because they haven't re-restricted them for a different purpose in the flexibility account, they're keeping them in the program. One idea is that they take, instead of awarding new MSA, they would discount an MSA request up to the amount of those categorical sources. They wouldn't take the categorical funding. They would just discount the additional MSA request by that existing amount. The special education support services, we've done something similar. So this is the money that used to flow to the AEA that now flows to the districts, but then they pay 90% of it to the AEA, but they get to retain 10%. What we've already communicated to school districts is that if they have a special education deficit balance and are requesting MSA, they should not have a balance in their special education support services monies because they can use that for special education purposes, and they should before they request additional MSA. So we're kind of thinking a similar conversation for the other state categorical funded categoricals that are eligible for the flexibility account. And that was the 5th discussion item.
I have to understand that superintendents may try to find ways around whatever you decide to do. That's just a comment, not a conviction. The flexibility is interesting. I haven't thought about that, but I never thought about not paying my special ed teachers, my EL teachers, not paying them the DSS money either, so.
That's good stuff.
Right. Just as we conclude for broader context, the historical numbers might be helpful. So in 2004, the total statewide UAB is at about 500 million. Then in 2016, it reaches and stays at $1 billion and continuously grows from there. And then it's more than doubled over the past 10 years. In 2024, UAB grew about 105 million and SBRC granted about 461 million in MSA. So hence the background for the discussions and the SBRC as it considers how to ensure purposefulness.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now, item 12. State Board of Education student.
And Dr. Klein, I just want to, while we're setting this up, I just want to turbocharge some of the thing. The SBRC has the authority in administrative rule to do everything that she said. There's mandatory considerations in the rules in SBRC's Chapter 6, such as the SBRC shall consider the amount of unexpended fund balances available in all funds, shall consider reduction in property tax, shall consider equal educational opportunities, may consider other alternative methods to. So, the question of special education support funds, that 10% and a negative unspent balance, that's a mandatory consideration in considering that request. So there's nothing that Dr. Klein says that is not already baked into the administrative code. So with that, I just wanted to turbocharge what my learned colleague just said.
Room. All right.
All right.
Hello, everyone. At the January meeting, there was thoughtful discussion on how the department might be able to provide some enrichment and post-secondary transition opportunities for this student member of the board. In response to that discussion and consistent with input from board member Halls, we began work on exploring possible potential pathways. The document before you is an outline of those potentials as an information and discussion item. We welcome the board's input, feedback, and guidance on what you believe would be beneficial and appropriate for the student board member.
Yeah, my comment is that I think you put together a good starting list. My recommendation would be, obviously it'd be a menu for them which to choose from, which would be up to them if they see it valuable to them. But I think it'd be helpful to get feedback from previous student members. You go back 5 years, so they've been out for a while, and what would have been helpful to them that might not be on this list.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we want Grace to chime in here big time. Yeah.
Well, to that fact, I can do some of the contacting if that's something that we're looking towards doing. And then also like having it beforehand, because I went into, upon my application, well, my principal had given the opportunity to me and my sister and had decided, you guys have to choose who's gonna apply, but I didn't really know what I was getting into, although I could tell it was a great opportunity. And so I think having something like this at the forefront seemed like, oh yeah, this is like, obviously I'm going to be doing this, this and this, but also I can get these great benefits. And not that that's what it's about entirely at all. But besides the experience, it's also like, oh, this would be great because I don't know how to do this or I don't know how to do this. Now, thankfully for me, my school is very organized and I'd like to think that I'm good with technology, but, I've been able to do most of these things, but I know there's a lot of people that are unaware of them. And so I think like having that in the beginning, because even now at 4 months from graduation, I'm like, well, these things would be great, but 90% of them I have done because it's 4 months from graduation. That's like earlier than later. And so I think that, asking, I think just it's great and having it there before people even apply would be a good thing too. So.
So what's the 10% on the list you haven't done yet?
Well, I think I've done everything on here, but I think I could get more information about scholarships and financial literacy. And then I obviously have a resume, but perfecting that and making it so that it's more applicable for certain careers and stuff. Yeah, mostly the scholarship stuff and the others. And then just I think I've had a lot of opportunities within connecting with my career. And so I think that's been really great. But I think that I obviously have only been here 1 year. I don't know how the other students used their resources, but I'd like to think that by me asking questions and reaching out, it has helped me gain insights to what it is available through the student board member, and as well as with instruction from everybody here. So I think just knowing that oh yeah, these are the people you can reach out to, and then being if you want to explore this, you can explore this. And so things like that. Yeah.
I think it might also be helpful just to maybe have a list of the board members, for a new member, for a student member, and just what we do. Because
Yeah.
you have access to everyone sitting at this table.
Right.
You should just be able to pick up the phone, but not knowing who we are and what we do, maybe in a professional capacity might, so.
Yeah.
If you knew that maybe before, just you're oh, I'm joining the board and here's, who's currently on the board or whatever. Right?
Yeah. So after talking in my first couple months, after talking to Cassandra here, I had the idea and have been working on a guide type. Because you come in and you're what's, what am I supposed to do? I didn't even know what I was supposed to wear, things like that. And you just don't know until you obviously ask. And so I think sometimes it gets intimidating asking adults, and coming from a student being maybe just a PDF, oh, here are the expectations. Here are advice, so that you don't have to go searching for the past student member to figure out, oh, asking these questions is even then it can be intimidating. So if that's something you guys are open to, for our school does a senior expo, and it's a presentation. I have to have a academic achievement. And after going over with my academic person, he does the TLC coordinator, things like that. He does that. He thought that it would be something that I could do to kind of kill two birds with one stone, if that's something that you guys are interested in. And then if there's anything you want me to include, and then that's something I can put together. And then obviously upon review of everybody, have everybody look that over. That's something I can put together.
It's a good idea.
It'd be similar to an FAQ.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good idea.
So just looking at this list, I'd see two purposes for this, the support to the student board member for like transitioning into life post student board member. It's also secondary benefit to the other board members for like if your successor chooses an opportunity on here and went through it and like this is really helpful, but it's poorly messaged, or this is really helpful, but it's kind of opaque, or this could be more helpful. The department could be more helpful in this way. It's I think there's a secondary benefit of setting up a feedback loop. So I'd be interested in whatever input that you and your predecessors have, as would the folks at this table and in the room.
So
Do we have contact information for previous student members?
I believe we can most likely get that.
I have.
Nice to have.
I have for at least 3 of them.
It would be nice to go back. I mean, to be able to, I mean, there should be records of student members going back from when it started. I mean, just because I think that's a network that's untapped. I mean, you have one that's, a representative from Fort Dodge. I think she was the first one, Megan Trinivas, I mean, she was a state board, so I mean, they've done amazing things. I mean, they've gone to amazing places. I think that's a network that you have available to you. But you need the people, the names and the contact information of those people, because I think any of them, if you're like, oh, go over across the street, talk to Megan, talk to any of them. They're amazing. I mean, you guys are like the best of the best. I mean, it's an amazing network of people. You should definitely tap into that.
I think that's something I could obviously include at the end of that, like just contact information. I'm sure anybody on the board would want, active humans, active people in society. And so like, I think anyone, myself, I think Michael and plenty others, would be willing to answer any questions. I've already gotten some questions, a couple emails about being the representative. And it's just like, I think these are questions that people don't know and are intimidated to ask. And I think that's like, if you have the outlets or if you have the people, because obviously, I'll go and look on Instagram and find people, but it's like, if that's there before or even when I have, or like if say there was a PDF document of whatever I make on the website before you go. So like you can ask people like, here's this PDF of everything you should expect. And then the contact information at the bottom. And then you can ask people, you can send emails and ask people. And that's obviously up to them if they're passionate enough about that to continue and to be better that. But I think that's would be helpful as well.
Absolutely.
Transition onto the board and transition.
Yeah. Just so that they don't have to I think my transition, it was like, it's like, okay, you come onto the board and then you have a maximum of 12 meetings a year. You want to make sure you're making an impact. And that's with my whole thing is like, I want to make an impact, but I only have so much time. Yeah, I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing at the beginning. So it was like, I had to take 2 or 3 meetings to be like, okay, like what is actually going on here until I could start being more comfortable. So I think that might allow for better discussion in the beginning, versus the last 5 meetings instead.
Anytime you're new to a board, there's always going to be
Right.
sit back and watch.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, it took me 2-3 years to figure it out. So good for you. I know. I'm like, it took me a while.
I am too, but I think that with the limited time that the students do have, it'd be beneficial to have that outline and network, as you said. So
Was there any omission on this list that you can think of that would be helpful?
just like anything on here that would be helpful to.
No,
or-
anything that's missing.
Oh, missing. I don't think so. I think I'd have to like think about it more and dive deeper into it more as I like continue to make
I just see this as kind of a working document.
Right, right. So definitely something I'd love to look into for everybody. But I think it's all really great. And like I said, just having it in the beginning is obviously beneficial. So yeah, not anything I can see as of right now.
Right. And so what we need to look at is to see if we can get some input from previous board members, get their perspectives. Some of them have been out for a few years or more.
Yeah.
And then also maybe getting an FAQ or some type of document as far as expectations to onboard.
That includes previous board members and contact information.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for
The guidance.
your work on this.
Are working on it.
And then the last item for adjournment is to have potential of a student member on the Community College Advisory Committee and the Non-Public Schools Advisory Committee.
So yeah, this is a continuation again, like the prior agenda item. It's a continuation from discussions last month. And the text of Iowa Code 5A is very, very clear. It's a public high school student eligible to apply in grades 10 or 11. And changing that, adding an additional member or stretching it to include non-public school students would require legislative correction. In the absence of that, the state board has the inherent authority, as does the director, to add a non-voting student member to either of the board subcommittees. And that would be solely within your discretion. It'd be a way to gather data to like, does that satisfy the need? Because those two subcommittees inform the work of the committee as a whole, or it's a way to gather data about like, if there's a legislative proposal put forward, we have a couple years of data from students in these roles serving on the state board subcommittee. So that's the offer that I have to you. It's within your authority. And if you decide to exercise that authority, President Robbins, Director Snow, we could work through the blocking and tackling, but we just wanted to get your sense of, is that a good next step? Is it something worth pursuing?
Thomas, I have a question. If we did want, and I think the consensus was to get a community college student on board, could we reach out to the legislation like the Ed Committee to say, hey, could we change the statute to add this? Do we have that authority as a board member to reach out to these?
You would be reaching out in your individual capacity.
Yes, in my individual, because I know 3-4 of them on the committee.
Right. The issue is, what authority or what weight would an individual member of the state board have versus the state board making
That's
it?
what I wanted to ask, because, that's what I thought about on the way home is, you probably know some people on the Ed Committee. I know quite a few, and what's our authority to be able to do that, or
Yeah,
do we
like,
have that
well,
authority?
yeah, I mean, I guess if we have a consensus here on the board that we want to do that, then I guess what you're asking is, can we,
Yeah.
as a state board of education or President Robbins, on
President
behalf,
Robbins say,
if we vote and say we want to do this, can he reach out? Or does it have to go to the department and does that have to get like approval or whatever? Like, can
That's
we
what I'm-
just,
yeah.
the state board, reach out and say we want this change?
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, it would have to be the state board wanting it.
Yeah.
And I would think that might be something that, correct me if I'm wrong, is that could be one of the pre-filed things that the department could do, not this year, but the following.
Work in conjunction with the department.
So it's more than just who the acting president is, it's the state board is requesting this.
Yeah.
That could be pre-filed ahead of time.
That was one of my questions when we were getting to this agenda item is how would that
How would it
work?
work? Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, if the board saying start with a subcommittee, because it just legislative action just it doesn't happen just because we want it to happen.
So
I could see a student member, college member on the community college advisory.
Yeah.
I'm not sure a community college member on the non-public schools.
So I think it would be a community college member and a community college student on that board subcommittee, a non-public school member on that board subcommittee.
Right. Right.
Just to clarify, that is action that the board can take now. We could establish an application process by which and rely on the existing committee members to help amplify that application process, to identify a community college student to serve on the community college advisory committee, and to identify a non-public school student to serve on the non-public school advisory committee. If the board did want to make a recommendation to the department to consider and to propose to the General Assembly for consideration, pre-filed legislation that would change the current statutory language of the student board member, that would likely need to be a conversation that occurred in August, September. The pre-filed deadline has long passed. And obviously funnel is at the end of next week.
Oh, yeah, we're talking about next year now.
So it's concurrent planning. It's both the subcommittee question as well as, the member, non-voting member on this body. Just time frame, subcommittee of the state board within the province of the director and the board president. That can happen tomorrow. July 1 of 2027 would be when the statute would change. We would already have state board members for that school year. So the school year beginning May of 2028 is probably the earliest as far as time horizon, if things operate according to the ordinary course, that those two additional student members would be on the state board. So, the recommendation is concurrent. The option is concurrent planning right now, and then.
I guess maybe the question I asked of Cass is that would the Community College Advisory Committee welcome a student member?
I think we absolutely would. And because I think it's important, but I think I would also, I guess, two questions that I would pose to the board. I'll pose them this way, I guess. Can we already put this placeholder, whether we put it on the agenda for August already, that we take the action to move this forward with the department, to put it on the legislative agenda? I don't want to miss the opportunity if we're looking at an August 2028 or a July 2028. Like, to me, that seems the wheels moving so slowly, right? That it would take that long to actually see a student member at this table or have the opportunity to have community college representation at this table. I just want to make sure we make that happen. If the board has consensus or interest in making that happen.
Can we vote on it if you have a motion?
Well,
No?
I would
just do it today.
in the ordinary course of business, maybe
Or put on the agenda for next month or whatever.
in the past, and maybe there's a couple of people in the room who've been here as long as I have. If there's a legislative proposal or a particular agenda item, the board president would appoint a subcommittee to bring a recommendation. And then when that recommendation is ready, it's put on the board agenda for an action item. So, who's going to write the legislative one? Who's going to write the proposal? Who's going to write the rationale or the theory of use? I think the ordinary course would be appoint a drafting and policy subcommittee on this particular question, which would then bring, when it's ready in June or July or August, action item back to the board. So don't know if that can be done, that doesn't need to be done in a meeting. But if that is the will of if that's the general will of this board, that's how I would recommend proceeding.
Now we're talking about a student member of this board.
They ask from board member Halls was a community college member.
Right.
Yes.
We're not talking about the subcommittees right now.
That can happen today. That can happen that can happen. You set the timeline for when that happens as board president.
We also didn't ask Brian about the
Yeah, well, I was going to get to that. So Brian and Mary, what are your thoughts about a non-public school student on your committee?
I have no objection to that. I think it's a good idea. I think I agree, we can already do it now, and I would probably just do that and see how it works before I launch off with a legislative proposal. Um, I mean, if you want to, I, I guess I'd want to know more about the history behind why it's a public high school student now. Are you guys talking about having 3 student members on the State Board of Education and the legislative change for that? Is that where the conversation has moved?
I wasn't
to?
talking
thought, 'cause
about,
I thought I was just on the subcommittee or the committee.
that's where I was going with it, was the interim, because we know we can't do anything as far as a community college person at this table till legislation is changed.
Well, I mean, so then do you want a student served by an AEA? Do you want to, I mean, where does this stop?
Brian, I think you raise an interesting question, and I'll pose it back to you a little bit differently. I think there's an opportunity as the landscape of Iowa's education changes here, and we have student representation at the board. I guess my feeling is we should have an opportunity to have a community college student. If we have student representation at the board, that it would seem to me that we have a community college student, which is part of the system that we represent, and a high school student. Whether it is a charter school student, a non-public student, a public school student, I think the high school student seat should be open to any of those students. I would wager a guess at the time the student seat was created, Iowa's system probably looked different or had the potential to look a little bit different. And maybe we need to modernize the seat to reflect what our system looks like today.
I think one other question that could follow is that this board accredits community colleges. This board also accredits teacher prep programs. So that could be another question that would then
Yeah, I
follow.
thought about that too, but.
So I think
the question is that in the interim, let's back it up a little bit. In the interim, if the community college advisory committee would like to have a student, how does that process? So we say, okay, go ahead and do it. How does that work? Do they pick one at random, or how does that, is there?
So like an application.
I think we would set up an application process and then request that the members help amplify it and that our partners help amplify it to ensure a fair and transparent process and in both committees.
Okay. And we can get that going today if we want. Well,
We can submit a
theoretically,
draft
we could,
application
yeah.
for the chair's review, yeah.
We can set it in motion today. Is anybody opposed to that, or are you in favor of that? Speak up now or forever hold your peace type of.
So will you qualify that student as part-time, full-time, any qualifications or adult, an older adult?
Could we send it to the advisory committee to determine what that should look like?
it's within this board's
And
discretion.
I'm not saying I
about-
have an idea of what that should look like, but yeah.
I don't know that I have the answers either, Mary.
Fair enough.
Good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then does that student also attend the state board meetings? Or how is that?
They would not attend as a participant. They could attend if they wanted to, like any public person could, or non-public person.
Okay.
Any person.
And then to your question.
I'll go back to what Brian said. I just don't know where it ends, how you qualify each of these new additions to whether it's an advisory committee or the state board?
Might be good to look at some other boards in other states and see what they have. That's what I would recommend because they're all very different. Some have student members, some have parent members, some have, I think that they run the gamut. I don't think a parent member is a bad idea. Or at least someone who has a child in some school system somewhere.
You're a parent member.
And I'm leaving, so who has a child? And seriously, so I'm just saying.
Grandchildren count?
So
Well, and then Brooke, and I that's a good comment, but then aren't those parents part of a district or a system that gives them voice within their world?
Yeah, but I think it's good to, just from like a state perspective to see what's going on and be able to have influence over that as well. So, because I think the state does influence kind of what comes down to the district as well, right? And then you have teachers that are coming from programs that are accredited by the state board. So I think it's just good. As a parent, I think I've gotten a lot more value out of sitting here on this board than I did prior to when my kids were in the school district. I don't know if my input's been good or not, but I'll leave it up to you guys to judge.
You've been outstanding, Brooke.
Oh, thanks. That's really sweet.
Sincerely.
Thank you.
So then maybe the second question, John, if I can ask, is if we could appoint that subcommittee or policy.
Legislative.
Yeah.
Policy, whatever.
However you would
Yeah.
call it,
Okay.
to continue to pursue the second part of the discussion.
As far as a community college board member seated here.
And or
The change that would need to be made or whatever to
Yeah.
see that. Or you guys can look at other things or whatever.
so we can keep that. It sounds like there's a lot of work that would need to happen to be ready by July or August.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm personally fine, but this gotta be more of a consensus of the board rather than just me.
On the subcommittee? Or whether we want to do that.
Well, as far as a recommendation to the drafting a bill or
Oh, yeah.
legislative action by the DE.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of confusing both conversations.
Yeah.
Would it be helpful to have a motion of the board to direct the department to establish an application process for a community college member on the Community College Advisory Committee and for a non-public member who I would assume would be a full-time student of an Iowa accredited non-public school, then public advisory, and then to have us hold it as calendared to engage in the research that you recommended about analysis of other states' board members. And then either in July or August, depending on if we have a July meeting, then have the board engage in this discussion again prior to the next legislative session, once it has had experience with additional board members, or additional advisory committee members.
Yes,
I
let's do
support
that.
I support that. I support that.
I would think we would want the conversation earlier than July or August if we have to be ready by August to put it on the legislative agenda. So if there's any additional research we want or any additional discussion we want to have, I don't want to get the information. Like if we don't have a meeting in July and we get the information in August, then we're going to be pinned against the wall again. If we have additional questions or want to have additional discussion, I don't want to run out of time and not be able to do what we want to have the discussion we need to have or get the additional information we would need. So does that mean May or June?
I think it'd be June or July, depending on if we have a July. think most likely one of those meetings will not occur. So if you're concerned that August might be too late, then we would want June or July.
And if July is potential to not happen, then that would be June.
Depending on which of those board meetings may be canceled. I think actually last year we canceled in June, not July. So that's a good point.
The non-public school advisory committee meets like 4 times a year, and the first meeting is in October, then there's December, then we just had one, then we'll have one in May. So I don't know that the timeline Cass is referring to is as big a deal for that committee. It's going to be much different for the community colleges, though.
I think, were you talking about the legislation or were you talking about committees?
No, I'm talking about just putting people on the committee. That's what the director was talking about, right?
And I think that
No.
it is confusing. I think that the question before the board would be, would the board entertain a motion to direct the department to move forward a draft application for both community college member on the Community College Advisory Committee and a non-pub member on the non-pub advisory committee. And then this would not require a motion. We will just take your feedback to calendar in either its June or July meeting. I originally said July or August, but June or July meeting to discuss the potential of having additional students at different institutions serve on the board itself. So the motion would be for the advisory committees, and then the additional feedback would be that we would calendar this discussion in the summer once we have done the additional research that the board requested.
I guess I would ask that be 2 motions. The first part to get people on the committee, it sounds to me like there's complete consensus to doing that.
I think that would.
And we don't need legislative approval to do it because it's inherent in our ability. I mean, we can have anybody we want on the non-public school advisory committee. We just find people who are participating in those schools so far, and to have a student, I think that's a good idea. I mean, I think I could appoint somebody right now.
Do we need a motion?
I think it would be helpful to have some clarity.
Brian, make the motion.
Well, I'll move that an application process be developed as the director described, for appointment of a student member to each of the community college. I'm not sure of the name. Sorry. Community College Advisory Committee and to the non-public school advisory committee to be effective, starting this coming fall. So we can get people appointed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we have clarity on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think
Yes.
it would not require a board motion for you to request that we put something on the agenda. The president and the vice president approve the agenda. So we will make sure that that's put before them for consideration. Be the vice president.
One other thought too. I'm not even opposed to just having one student seat that is open to a high school student, a community college, or even a teacher prep. And maybe there's just a rotation, like 1 year it's a high school, 1 year it's a community college, 1 year it's a teacher prep, so that it just is reflective of the system. So it doesn't have to be 3 seats. It could be 1 seat.
That was gonna be part of the discussion that we would have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys have to figure out what that's going.
So.
All right.
Oh, one more question.
Yeah.
When is the last meeting for Brian and Brooke?
It's
And
in April, right? Like, so that's correct, Jeremy, right? It's in April, yeah. I mean.
What is that?
She means 12 years. It's a long time.
So we'll
We'll
be.
get you a friend certificate for all your.
I just want my cake, okay? My cake. That's all I want is a cake. And maybe a gift.
It's only a couple of meetings away. Are they making appointments yet?
They're working through that. Yep. Are we offsite in April? We are. In the Des Moines area. Okay. I don't think I have anything else.
You sure? All right.
Very good.
We're adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.